Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Economic Matters Committee to our 1 p.m. bill hearings. Today is Tuesday, March 10th. If you are new to ECM, please know that we are here to listen to your testimony and to hear you out. And, for their questions, we have them for you. With that said, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. The bill sponsors, the legislators, they are not timed, but I would respectfully request that bill sponsors present under 3 minutes, if at all possible, while getting your point across. Those who are testifying following the legislator, you will be timed at 2 minutes. If the clock catches you, we respectfully request that you sum up your testimony and not continue reading through your script. If you did provide written testimony, please know each member of the committee has it in their laptop, so we have every file that you have submitted. If you are testifying and you signed up, you will know that you were confirmed because you would have received a confirmation. If you did not receive a confirmation, then you are not officially signed up. So please, we request that you not come up to the table to testify. There are people who had followed the procedure, and we would like to give them their due time. With that said, if you see any member of the committee, including myself, standing, it's not out of disrespect. It's just that sometimes we're in here hours on end, and it's not healthy to sit down for so long. With that said, we have members from the Appropriations Committee joining us this afternoon, Delegate Tolles, Delegate Wallach. Welcome. We will begin with House Bill 1452. Delegate Tolles.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I'm not sure, are there any witnesses signed up that will be joining me? It may not be here yet. Just me, that's all that's needed. So, Madam Chair, thank you so much. Glad to be in your committee for the first time. And also, Madam Vice Chair. I'm gonna give myself a second because I wasn't prepared to go first, but I'm gonna make it work. Real development cannot happen under a system that thrives on inequality. And I believe that quote is taken from James Baldwin, and so I looked it up and it was. I'm not sure if it, those exact words, but the concept is there. And we must advocate for fundamental change in economic development in certain communities. So, this quarter is home to a large federal entity called the Suitland Federal Center. It establishes homes and communities, a renovated high school and middle school, and it supports scholars in a center called College Track that is supported by Kevin Durant, and because he's from that community. And so in addition to that, we want to bring, as he quoted, wants to bring a community. He wanted to do the Durant Center because he wanted to bring a community to his hometown that encourages the need to succeed for young people. But part of that encouragement is ensuring that you have a community that is thriving with appropriate development and financial support. And we have done this type of legislation before in Maryland. So I want to shout out your committee member, Delegate Ampry. Sorry I didn't get permission to use his name, but Delegate Ampry in 2021 with Senator Hayes did HB 1293, which established the Baltimore West the Baltimore City West Avenue development. And just yesterday, we heard from the president of Coppin State, who said that that development has really contributed to the growth of the community, and it really was beneficial to Coppin State. So I thank you, Delegate Ampry, for setting the footprint to do this in the Suitland community. This bill establishes several findings of the General Assembly as it relates to the Suitland Road and Silver Hill Road intersection and the need for its revitalization. The legislation establishes the Suitland Development Authority to revive the various communities along Suitland Road and Silver Hill Road in Prince George's County. It promotes economic development, encourages the increase the need and the increase of business activity, commerce, and it balances the county out with proper economic development. And it promotes, obviously, the health of public safety and right of gainful employment and welfare of the residents. This does not, we have several development authority, I wouldn't call them authority, but agencies within Prince George's County. It does not in any way try to take place of any of those development entities. In fact, they are part of the legislation, and they are partners in with us in this effort. And this is just a way to advise the community and really for the states to have an entity to put economic, development into a corridor that is definitely needed. Again, I reference our Student and Federal Center in that area. And so this year, don't believe it will be any funding for that this year, but we really just want to get this authority up and going so we can begin to invest, so the state can begin to invest in this community. And Madam Chair, I have just 2 amendments. I want to add the planning director of Prince George's County as part of this legislation, and also my 2 colleagues from 2-5, one of your committee members, Delegate Roberts and Delegate Roberson, will be added as co-sponsors. So with that, I will close out and take any questions.
So I'll begin by, he was here, he's next to you.
Justin, and would it be okay if Chairman Barnes, as a former member, joined me here? Or I could just recognize him.
Oh, Darryl Barnes.
I
was thinking chair of appropriations.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I'm like, hello, Delegate Barnes.
Yes.
I believe former delegate, but
Yeah,
go
former
ahead.
delegate.
Sure. Hey, how's it going? My name is Justin Ross with Rise Investment Partners, real estate development and consultancy in Prince George's County. We are here in support of this legislation. Thank you to the delegate, to the 25th District for your support. We represent 35 Ventures, the Durant family office, and they are engaged in a $330 million redevelopment of Suitland, the community he grew up in. That is a 12-acre redevelopment, urban infill, extremely hard, extremely complicated. And this project, they say good artists borrow and great artists steal. This project and sort of this legislation really is sort of the West North Ave Development Authority, it gave us proof that sort of when you have the state as the, the presiding group that can bring people together, that can bring resources, that can, that there is real success, and we've already seen that. This is a similar area that's seen disinvestment for years and years and years. Despite lots of efforts, despite a lot of investment from the state, we still have yet to see that private sector development. So thank you to the delegate, to the senator, to the county executive, who've been very supportive of this project. We think that we think this legislation makes a lot of sense, and its time is now. And we think, between just in one 6-block area, the Park Service, GSA, Department of the Navy, Smithsonian, and a couple others I'm forgetting, WMATA, State Highway, like there are so many different entities that having the state involved and having that presence is, I think, really important for the development for the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Delegate Tills, you mentioned amendments. It'll be on your watch to submit those amendments.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. We have already requested those amendments to add the sponsors' names and also adding a spot on a board for planning for Prince George's County Planning Department, which falls under the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. And can I just add that as former delegate Justin Ross indicated, this board will be chaired by our Prince George's County executive. Because we are a county, we don't go to, it's not like the city. We have an executive that will function as the chair of that. So we're really excited about this. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll get those amendments to you as soon as possible, as soon as they're done drafting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. You've had conversations, I assume, with the Appropriations Committee, or have there been any?
Yes. Okay. As we spoke with you, Chairman Barnes and I spoke with you on the floor, and we're ready. We just need to stand it up, and then once it's stood up, we're going to look for some appropriated funds. Or did you have another question as it relates to the?
Seeing no further questions.
Any questions?
And no further witnesses, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1452. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for your time.
Is Delegate Young here? No. Okay. Delegate Boifo. Oh, Delegate Young is here? Okay, Delegate Bluffo, you may return back to your seat. Delegate Young, House Bill 1371.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience, colleagues. Delegate Young here on behalf of 1371. I'm joined next to me by my Chief of Staff, Juwan Davidson, and I wanted to make sure that he came and joined me today because this bill is truly his birth child. He came to me with the legislation, and I tried to make him do the testimony, but he wanted me to do it, so I'm here to take it on. But he's going to be helpful, particularly with a lot of the questions, because he's been the main person in our office engaging with the Department of Commerce and the Secretary of State's office as well. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the Economic Matters Committee, Delegate Young here to urge a favorable report on House Bill 1371, the Maryland Africa Diaspora Investment and Development Program. The legislation is about Maryland choosing to be a partner, not just a participant, in the next chapter of global growth between our state and the African continent and the Caribbean region. It's a strategic framework to unlock new markets, diversify our revenue base, and turn cultural ties into taxable income and middle-class jobs here at home. Why Maryland? Maryland is home to some of the most affluent and educated African diasporan communities in the world, with strong concentrations in Prince George's County, Montgomery County, and Baltimore City. At the same time, Africa is home to some of the fastest growing economies in the world with the youngest populations in the world. The story of this bill is very simple. Maryland and Africa are natural partners, as evidenced, if you recall, last year I did a Black History Month moment where we Marylanders created the Republic of Maryland in West Africa, which is now Maryland County and Liberia. We are uniquely positioned as natural partners with folks in Africa, and we have the ability and the obligation to act like it. Instead of watching other states or foreign governments capture this opportunity, House Bill 1371 creates the policy infrastructure for Maryland to stand up an ethical, transparent, and mutually beneficial trade and investment relationship with Africa and the broader African diaspora, similar to what we currently have for Ireland, similar to what we currently have for Israel. This is not about just trade. This is about trade, not aid. And we are moving from charity mindsets to enterprise and partnership, with each dollar deployed through this program expected to generate a return on Maryland's economy and for partner communities abroad. Let me skip a little bit and save y'all some time. A few things about the bill as drafted, and I'm going to pass it right over to my Chief of Staff to just talk about the amendments. We've been, again, engaging with the Secretary of State's office, and I'm not going to position them as in support necessarily, but certainly in partnership of trying to figure out what could and would make sense, similar to that with this Office of the Commerce. We've reduced a few things. For instance, the bill is drafted, asked for $10 million investment. We've reduced that to a $4 million appropriation. We talk about federal grants, including opportunities through programs like Proper Africa and USAID, private investment from companies and financial institutions and other market participants, and contributions from philanthropic and nonprofit organizations. We're trying to build those a little bit more into the bill than what was originally anticipated. Additionally, this bill would be broken down to being a pilot program, trying to leverage some of the existing relationships that we already have, particularly through our sister state programs in particular, and just building on some of the work that's being done, but doing so in a way that's a little bit more intentional about creating these new supply chains and new business partnerships throughout the program. So with that, I'm going to pause, and I'm going to pass it over to my Chief of Staff to briefly just talk to you about those amendments, and then I'll just take any questions.
Yeah, I think one of the key amendments is, I'm sorry, my name's Juwan Davidson. I'm the Chief of Staff for Delegate Young. Thank everyone. I think one of the key amendments is changing the appropriation from 10 to 4 in a diversified fund. Like the delegate had mentioned, our thought process with that is that if you look in the bill language, there is a board system, and much like you do with nonprofits or any other board, you kind of get them to contribute a part of that. Another thing is adding a 2 to 5% earmark of the revolving fund. So we are essentially acting as investors to these companies that want to do bilateral trade with Africa using the diaspora. Once we, as the state, receive a return on that investment, 2 to 5% of that would go to helping build the bridge. Some of the other amendments were in there to allow the executive branch to do the regulatory things that they need to do, and not us prescribe it through the legislature as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair, colleagues, and we urge favorable report.
Thank you. We'll begin with Delegate Pippy.
So a couple questions. So page, I always like to point to the specific page, it's helpful. So page 2, line 16 talks about the definition of African diaspora. Diaspora, there you go. It says means individuals of African or Caribbean descent. Does that mean Puerto Ricans?
Yes.
All right, so I'm a Puerto Rican. That's good. But here's my real question. So I see that you've listed Baltimore City in here on the board. So page 3, line 8, the mayor of Baltimore appoints a designee, and then you have a couple other places where individuals of Baltimore City. So I guess what I'm getting at, is this mostly for investment in Baltimore, or is this kind of a statewide push?
No, it would be a statewide push. I think part of the reason we wanted to emphasize the city is because of its strategic, it's a strategic asset. The Port of Baltimore is in the city. When we think about the history that I referenced, that was all spearheaded through the city. And part of it, again, is where some of these communities, where the African diaspora communities are. I mean, it's a significant one in Baltimore City. And so I think that's really kind of the purpose. And again, leveraging every level of government we think is important, whether it's because again, we're going to want people like the BDC to be involved. For instance, the Baltimore Development Corporation, that's a city quasi-agency. So just one example, but there are others of entities that may not necessarily be in the direct purview of the state, but may be in the purview of the city that we would want to have engagement with. And again, the city is the economic center of the state, so that's part of it as well.
And then the last piece, I know you did an amendment. I was looking at the Office of Budget Management. Obviously, they had concerns, but they were listing the 10 million. Do they still have concerns of the 4 million?
I would expect, look, we know what the fiscal outlook is right now, so, any major appropriation is going to have concerns. I don't want to speculate because we haven't had a conversation with them about what that reduction would specifically mean, but I would anticipate that a similar concern might remain. But again, part of the rationale with all of this is it's an investment. And so, when and where the state makes those investments, we would expect the return to come back. And again, we're talking about the fastest growing economies, the best deep water ports in the world, and supply chain opportunity, especially as we think about decoupling from China and the global politics that's occurring. One example is it takes 40 days for something to ship from China to the west coast of the United States. It takes 20 days to do that between Baltimore and, some of the deep water ports in Liberia or Sierra Leone. So, to create those type of capacity, we think it can be really positive and net positive across the board for our state, but certainly, especially for our state, especially as we try to think about new revenue streams for the state.
Okay. Thank you for answering the questions.
Thank you for the question.
See no further questions. See no further questions. Thank you, Delegate Young.
Thank you.
We do have one more witness, Fatima Wahid. Fatima?
That's Hussein. Okay.
Wait, who? Who are you?
Hussein.
You didn't sign up, sir.
I think I signed up, but my name comes up as Fatima. It's the same.
Oh, okay. And you're with?
I'm with Advanced Technology
Okay.
Acceleration. I just wanted to use this chance to state that, Kaylin Young's group has done surveys, actually, and they have provided great input with respect to how such initiatives can be facilitated, enhanced with respect to the African Diaspora Initiative, where collaboration can be easily conducted with the help of interactive implementation specifications and standards. It's a part of the bill HB 1570 that Delegate Kaylin Young is leading as well. But I wanted to point out that this experience that comes from collaboration internationally is based on a lot of the work that was done through UNESCO, and we should utilize, and we're going to utilize that experience, the model of standards and specifications for interaction and intertrade, and also international development of technologies, which can be facilitated with any continent, especially Africa, because it's leading and the generation is very young. So similar initiatives are being attempted. European Union has joined and requested to take part in this type of initiative as well, because they have seen the results delivered in the United States, where a small state develops the standards, and then they become regional standards, and then they are adopted nationally. And that generates transformative economic efficiency that is part of 3 other bills this session, and we'll be going over the details, but we cannot underestimate the value these collaborations generate. It runs into several $billion, and not only the collaboration with external entities, but within the government itself, transformation takes place because you see the best practices, you implement them, and realize the advantages. So thank you very much.
Seeing no further questions and no further witnesses, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1371. Thank you, Delegate Young. We'll now move on to House Bill 1172. Is there someone here to present for Howard County? Okay, all right.
Oh, okay, great. Hi, good afternoon, Chair Balderrama, Vice Chair Charkoudian, and distinguished members of the Economic Matters Committee. For the record, my name is Charlie Perry, here on behalf of Howard County Delegation Chair Natalie Ziegler, to present House Bill 1172, Howard County Economic Development Authority alterations. This bill decreases from once a month to once every other month the frequency at which the board must meet, and updates languages and practices to bring Howard County Economic Development Authority in line with other economic development authorities in the state. The Howard County delegation requests a favorable report on this bill. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Jones, CEO of Howard County Economic Development Authority. And as was stated, these are minor technical corrections. When we were formed 30 years ago, the state developed the language, and then Howard County just took the state language and adopted it into the code. And so in order to make these minor technical corrections, we have to come back to the state once again and get these changes made. And they've been tracked over a couple of decades by our attorney. And now is when we've decided to come and, just make these technical corrections to the running list. So appreciate your time and request a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions and no further witnesses, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1172. Colleagues, we're now going to skip to Delegate Boafo's bill, House Bill 859.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, for your flexibility and for yielding 20 minutes for me to do this. You guys were supposed to laugh at that. Come on, you guys. For the record, well, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the House Economic Matters Committee, for the record, Delegate Adrian Boafo here to present House Bill 859, the Maryland Financial Innovation Act. I want to start by thanking Delegate Chi for her leadership in shepherding this bill and through its process through the interim, and Delegate Ampry for his support as well. I'm glad that we have regional support. But with nearly 15% of Marylanders now owning some form of digital assets, it is clear that this technology is already a meaningful part of our economy. Yet Maryland's law has fallen behind other states in providing clear rules for how these technologies operate. This bill, the Maryland Financial Innovation Act, updates Maryland law by adding basic definitions for blockchain technology and clarifying how staking in particular as a service are treated under state law. For those who don't know, staking is a process used by certain blockchain networks to validate transactions and secure the network. Individuals who hold digital assets can choose to stake their assets and earn rewards from the network, often through staking service providers that handle the technical processes. Today, the legal status here in Maryland is unclear. In some cases, staking services are being treated like securities, even though they do not meet the definition of a security. Maryland is also increasingly becoming an outlier in this field. In fact, 46 other states already allow staking services to operate. Because our state lacks the necessary clarity, Marylanders have already missed out on more than $9 million in staking rewards alone on Coinbase platforms. So let's imagine what that would look like on other platforms. By clarifying that staking as a service is not a security, this bill ensures that Maryland users can access these services and receive the rewards they are entitled to. At the same time, it helps signal that Maryland is open to investment in blockchain technology and digital asset innovation. Companies are making decisions right now about where to build, hire, and grow, and providing clear, predictable rules will help attract that innovation here in our state. I'll end by saying this. To be clear, this bill does not eliminate fraud enforcement, deregulation of cryptocurrency, or weaken consumer protection laws. If a company engages in fraud or deceptive practices, the state will retain full authority to enforce its laws. This legislation simply ensures that Maryland law keeps pace with emerging technology while protecting consumers and supporting economic growth. Madam Chair, for those reasons, I respectfully urge a favorable report.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. I'm Katie Ann, and I lead policy at Coinbase, America's largest crypto platform and a publicly traded company. At Coinbase, we don't just accept regulation, we advocate for it. We hold 46 state money transmission licenses, including one right here from the Maryland Office of Financial Regulation. We are regulated by the CFTC and the SEC through various subsidiaries and by dozens of regulators around the world. We believe the crypto economy needs clear rules of the road to protect consumers and foster innovation. More than 52 Americans own crypto, including 15% of Marylanders. This is not a fringe technology. Maryland should be looking for ways to participate in this innovation, not put itself at a disadvantage. Staking, which this bill addresses, allows individuals to temporarily lock up their digital assets to help verify transactions and secure the network, earning rewards from the blockchain protocol. Importantly, users always retain ownership and control of their assets. This bill simply clarifies the legal access of staking. The services are not securities. Maryland is currently an outlier. 46 states already permit staking services. This committee cares rightfully about consumer harm, and so does Coinbase. In more than 6 years of offering staking nationwide, no Coinbase customer has ever lost assets through our staking service. Across the entire global staking ecosystem, losses due to penalties are exceedingly rare. Because Maryland lacks this clarity today, Maryland residents have missed out on more than $9 million in staking rewards on Coinbase's platform alone. That's $9 million not in the pockets of Marylanders. This bill confirms staking as a service, ensures Marylanders are not left behind, and shows that the state of Maryland is open for innovation. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Morning, and thank you, Chair and the members of the committee. I live in Prince George County, Oxon Hill to be exact. My name is Howard John, and I'm the founder of Black Meta Agency, a virtual reality workforce training firm that I built from the ground up with one goal in mind, to leverage the blockchain to help everyday people access opportunity in the digital economy. I understand this economy and ecosystem from the very core. I'm in it as a builder, a developer, and a stakeholder. When I think about scaling my company here in Maryland, I reflect on the work across the state that our company leads. In Montgomery County, at the University of Shady Grove, I serve as the co-chair of the Engineering Technology Hub. At the Community College of Baltimore County, we launched the nation's first virtual reality dental hygienist program. And in Maryland, we're currently touring colleges around workforce pathways in the blockchain. I want to continue to grow my company, hire talent, and invest in the community that helps shape me and my business. But I have to choose between staying compliant and staying competitive. I'm forced to look at markets that are more open and accommodating to innovation. I'm currently also working with the DC Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, where they have $500 million of fintech companies. Founders across the state lines are coming every day to relocate for more clarity and capital control. Maryland has the talent and entrepreneurial spirit to compete, but we need the policy and environment to make it happen. The staking ban doesn't just restrict the product, it stifles creativity, it limits growth, it shrinks the broader economic impact from builders who are using these tools to create jobs and value in our communities. We talk about free markets and free enterprise, but when it comes to how I can use and grow my own digital assets, there's suddenly a glass ceiling placed above me. People who cannot afford a home can now invest in fractional property, generate revenue for themselves, and pull themselves up from poverty. I want to build here. I want to hire here. Our message is simple. Give us the space and the freedom to be innovative and the chance to compete to continue the culture of progress that makes Maryland so unique. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Gilberto Nazario. I'm a resident of Anne Arundel County, a U.S. Army combat veteran, a founder, and entrepreneur working in blockchain and digital asset technologies. I'm also the chapter president for Stand With Crypto here in Maryland. I speak here today in my personal capacity as a builder and community member involved in this emerging technology. I'm here today in support of House Bill 859. This legislation provides important clarity that Maryland residents should be able to operate blockchain nodes, use self-hosted wallets, develop blockchain software, transfer digital assets, and participate in staking networks without unnecessary regulatory barriers. These activities represent the core infrastructure that allows blockchain networks to operate securely and efficiently. Staking, in particular, is often misunderstood. It's not simply an investment product. It is how many blockchain networks validate transactions and maintain the integrity of their systems. Individuals who stake digital assets help secure these decentralized networks, similar to how servers support and maintain the infrastructure of the internet. For communities like mine, the benefits are deeply personal. The Latino community in the United States sends tens of billions of dollars every year in remittances to family members abroad. Traditional remittance systems can charge high fees and take days to process transactions. Blockchain networks allows families to send money and within seconds and often for a fraction of the cost, helping working families keep more than what they earn. House Bill 859 sends a clear signal that Maryland supports responsible innovation, financial inclusion, and American leadership in financial technology. It ensures that builders, developers, and entrepreneurs can continue developing these technologies here in Maryland. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chairwoman and members of the committee. My name is Yonda Pooh, Baltimore County, and I am a proud Marylander. I am the founder and CEO of Genius Room, a global home for leaders, governments, and entrepreneurs leading in AI, Web3, blockchain, and ethical innovation. I am also a 2026 delegate for Women of Color in Blockchain, selected by Cleve Messenger to serve on our council. As a Black woman in blockchain, I know both the promise of this technology and the populations that risk being left behind if we don't act. When I look at Maryland, I see underused, underserved communities filled with untapped potential. For years, I've worked close enough to markets to understand how value is created, but also how access to the value is controlled. Opportunity isn't evenly distributed. Participation isn't evenly accessible. Blockchain gives us the tools to break what I call generational monetary curses by creating access, transparency, and new ways for all to participate in the financial system. Staking at its core is a reward system. If I allow my digital assets to help secure a network, I should be able to earn rewards in return. Platforms like Coinbase offers between 3.5 and 5% in staking rewards in states where it's permitted. That's not speculation. That's the equivalent equivalent of building a savings account for my future and my children's future. When my own family members in other states can access these opportunities and I cannot, I feel like Marylanders are being intentionally left behind, forced to play catch up while others accelerate in progress. Businesses will move, talent will move, innovation will move, and I would hate to see our population decrease because we fail to embrace digital transformation. Through initiatives like the Genius Room, I work to connect high net worth individuals, governments, founders, and communities, because this is about partnership, collaboration, and forward-looking policy. Thank you.
We will begin with Delegate Chi and then Delegate Ambry.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, our good delegate, for bringing forth this bill. I appreciate all of your testimonies, and I especially appreciate the entrepreneurs' heartfelt messages about the importance of building community wealth through entrepreneurship and innovation in that space. I believe you all said, especially the sponsor and I think the representative from Coinbase, about how other states have led their way, so we're not charting new course in that sense, right? As the delegate mentioned, I was initially interested in that legislation. I'm glad you are willing to carry the water, so to speak, but I did reach out to the Attorney General's office to understand the context, and they insisted that Maryland already allows the staking. So to that, what would be your response, either one of you?
Yes, I'm happy to answer that, Delegate. Thank you for the question. So when you think of staking, you can stake as an individual. If you are a computer science expert, you have a supercomputer, you are able to actually stake. What Coinbase provides is the infrastructure in order to do this. So let's take a step back and think a bit about this from a different example. Let's say you own a rental property that you want to rent. You can go out, buy a sign to put in the window to say for rent. You can manage the property. You can have tenants view it. You can manage the credit card processing, or you can hire Airbnb. They handle all this. They handle the back and forth with the vendors or with the tenants, and they manage the payment. That is what we're doing here. We are allowing the infrastructure so you can stake and you have access to staking. So right now in Maryland, you can't have access to stake unless you have your computer science degree. You're leaving $9 million on the table, and 46 other states, along with the SEC, put out guidance that this staking is a service.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate, for bringing this bill forward, and happy to be a part of this bill. And, I think one of the reasons why, I wanted to join in on this and anything that can make Maryland more competitive. And I think that, given that we compete in a really unique region, wanted to get some understanding as to what other states are doing. I know you mentioned a lot of other states, but more importantly, what are the states doing around us? Are they doing this? Is this something that you're seeing, that we're seeing? Remind me or keep us up to date on what other states are doing around us.
Yeah, when you think about our neighbors, DC, Virginia, Delaware, Pennsylvania, they all allow staking, right? In fact, Kentucky last year just passed legislation to allow this to happen. Wisconsin is currently, as of like last week, moving their bill through the House. We expect them to move through the Senate. This is not just bipartisan, but no state is, the states that allow this to happen, we haven't seen consumer harm in that way. So our neighbors are benefiting off of this. If you're one of the 15%, and that's a growing 15% of Maryland users that's actually using crypto, the question you're gonna start asking yourself is why Maryland when DC, Virginia, Pennsylvania allow it to happen?
Right, so so by not moving on this, and because, again, we're a unique state in that it's really easy to set up shop or do business and do things in other jurisdictions, there's a serious possibility of us losing economic opportunity if we don't keep up with our neighbors.
Not only are, great question, but not only are the folks who are sitting at this table going to look to other states at some point, but we're also losing out on tax revenue here. As we just mentioned, on Coinbase platform alone, $9 million, and that's just on the Coinbase platform alone. And when you think about our budget crisis and all the things that we're going through, why wouldn't we want to capture some of that tax revenue? So yeah, to your point, yes, I do think that we're losing out on economic opportunity here.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I need to ask, because this is probably considered a consumer protection issue. Do we have any data on, you said we're operating in other states, do we have any sense of, have people lost money, or do you have any data on that or how that may be handled?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question. We have never had a consumer lose money or lose rewards on Coinbase's platform out of all the states. There's a statistic, which is kind of a funny statistic, but you're 6 times more likely to get struck by lightning than lose money by staking. Staking is a really safe use of crypto. And I think specifically for this bill, it is so narrow. We worked with OFR to make sure that this bill did not take away or infringe on their ability to protect consumers. One thing I say a lot is when consumers lose money on Coinbase's platform, Coinbase loses money. So that is not what we want to do. We want to be good stewards of the ecosystem, but we want our consumers to be protected in Maryland and in the 46 other states where this is available.
Madam Chair, if I may just add one thing to that. Thank you. Delegate Queen, the other thing I will add is that I think there's been some misconceptions about this bill's ability to prevent fraud from happening. And the reality is the Attorney General's office still has all the teeth they need to still go after bad actors that may exist in this market. I know that the folks are here talking about the Coinbase platform, and so there may be other concerns about other platforms, but the reality is, as we've been talking to folks across the country who do have this bill and those who do allow this to happen, we haven't seen those deceptive practices. But if there were deceptive practices to happen in Maryland, the Attorney General's office still has all the teeth that they need to go after bad consumers.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you very much, Delegate Boifin.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We'll move on to favorable with amendment, Rory Murray and John Bratsakis.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Rory Murray here on behalf of the Maryland DC Credit Union Association. John gives his regards, he couldn't make it today. But we represent the 65 credit unions in Maryland, and they're about 2.2 million members. Credit unions are big fans of innovation. We've been at the forefront of a lot of these things over the years, even though credit unions aren't necessarily the first ones to take the leap, just because as member-owned cooperatives, our risk tolerance tends to be a bit lower than investor-owned or for-profit financial institutions. But we've been very much in these conversations. So when it comes to the digital asset world itself, we're all on the same page. The one thing that gives us pause about this bill is kind of the last comment that the sponsor had mentioned. The Attorney General's office will still have the teeth to enforce if there are consumer protection issues under the Maryland Securities Act, but the bill says specifically that staking as a service is not a security and is not an investment. So it's more of a cautionary tale of, yes, this is not traditional finance, it's not a depository institution, so it shouldn't necessarily be regulated as a depository institution, but you still have, and I don't care what the nomenclature is. I don't care if it's an investment or if it's a security. It's all legal jargon. We can make up whatever name we want. But there's value changing hands. I think if the bill, at least from our perspective, gave more insight into who is the oversight body. The federal government has kind of a choppy oversight regulatory landscape on all this right now. So when it comes to protecting our members who are starting to delve into this world, being able to give them guidance of if something bad does happen, who is the oversight body at the state level is important. Thank you.
Mr. Murray, I'll just ask you, you're signed up as favorable with amendment. Are you offering amendments?
The amendments are more conceptual. They're in my written testimony. I didn't have time to talk about them in detail, but it's more of limiting the language in the bill of, I'll just read them to you since you asked. The staking out, the carve out is overly broad. It bill declares that staking as a service is categorically not an investment contract or security under the Maryland Securities Act, and is exempt from registration and filing requirements. So what is it regulated under at the state level? Amending the bill to clarify who's the oversight body? What regulatory authority do we have? Risk of fraud of retail losses. The bill preempts state and local regulation of digital assets activities, which could provide timely, targeted, and so there's no ability for any timely or targeted enforcement actions if OFR or a local consumer protection body figures out that there is something going on, it's affecting a lot of consumers in one single area. They can't take any actions because, once again, we don't know who's overseeing this. If it's saying we're not a security, we're not an investment, I'm not sure, other than general UDAP laws, what then applies. The Maryland money transmitter laws don't have nearly the same teeth as typical regulated financial institution laws are. And the last is we would update for language of disclosure. One thing a lot of people don't realize is, similar to trading in the stock market, you're putting your money in, there's no guarantee you get it back, and there's no insurance on the back end. So updating disclosure requirements.
Okay, thank you for sharing your amendment
You're welcome.
conceptually. With that said, if you were to offer it, it would need to be offered. If
Yes.
that was, okay, I just want to make that clear. That's not, to the bill sponsor or what have you, or the subcommittee.
Yeah.
With that, the bill sponsor and then Delegate Queen.
I'm going to yield my question to Delegate Queen.
Chair. So I guess my question is just to get, while we're waiting on the amendment, I'm assuming that we have this in Virginia, and you operate in Virginia, right?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't? Just Maryland?
Yep.
Oh, okay then. That's fine.
I can see what they're doing in Virginia, get
Yeah,
back to
I
you, but I
wanted
have
to
no
know
idea.
how who was doing the oversight?
Yeah.
If you could find that out for me.
Sure.
Okay.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to the unfavorables. Max Brower, Jennifer Bevan Dangle, and Melanie Lubin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I'll go as people are coming up. My name is Jennifer Bevan Dangle. I'm the Deputy Director of Economic Action Maryland Fund. And we are very concerned about this emerging technology coming into play without suitable oversight and regulations. So it's a little bit similar to what you've heard from the credit unions, but with a bit more hesitation and concern. We're aware that there are a suite of amendments that have been drafted to the bill. The sponsors sort of team was kind enough to share them with me. And those amendments actually reduce our concern significantly. But I think we're stuck on the same place that the credit unions were stuck. And I was happy to hear the sponsor say that there would still be oversight through the OAG's office. We do think that that's the critical piece for the consumers to have confidence entering into these systems. But we would just like to see language tightened up there that explicitly authorizes and allows that type of oversight. We think it's incredibly important for there to be a backstop. And to Delegate Queen's question, which is a really good one, we understand Coinbase has been operating and has not had any incidents and is doing a very good job, and we appreciate that. But across the market, there are many different entities offering this staking service. We saw Stake.com recently had a $41 million loss to its consumers. We've seen Celsius, which collapsed and locked billions of dollars of funding because of that collapse. People could not access their money. So just as we've heard from the supporters, the potential and the impacts this can have for small business and entrepreneurs, and we love that, but there are still incredible risks that an entity could fail, could lose money, could engage in fraudulent practices, and this same promise that we're being offered could turn into a nightmare for these individuals because there isn't sufficient oversight in play. So I think our position has softened significantly, and we do appreciate the amendments that have been introduced, but we would just like to see that last piece, the oversight by the OAG, tightened up considerably to make sure that consumers are protected as we move into this emerging market.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. I'm Melanie Lubin, the Maryland Securities Commissioner in the Attorney General Securities Division. Also with me, Max Brower is one of our Assistant Attorneys General and Chief of our Enforcement Unit. I really do appreciate the testimony of the last two witnesses because they have started to lay out what our concerns are with this bill. And the first panel, waxed poetic about what's so great about this universe. But I'm here to tell you why it isn't so great. And I'm going to be really direct because we don't have a lot of time. There are three foundational items to keep in mind when you consider this bill and hopefully vote against it. First, despite what the industry would have you believe, it's not illegal to stake in Maryland. Like anyone else who pulls investors' money together into an investment contract security, this industry can comply with the Maryland Securities Act and lawfully sell their products in Maryland. They simply don't want to comply with the laws that this body has passed to protect investors and safeguard investors' funds. They want to have their cake and eat it too, and do not recognize that the privilege to be entrusted with someone's hard-earned investment money comes with the responsibility to safeguard those monies by complying with Maryland law. The second foundational issue is that these matters are still being debated by the U.S. Congress, and the dust has yet to settle on how these assets will be regulated federally. Will it be the SEC, the CFTC, or both? Will these products be considered securities or commodities or both? Maryland law, like the Uniform State Securities laws, specifically requires us to coordinate the interpretation and administration of our law with federal law. There is no federal law yet on point. This January, the pending federal legislation was close to final form, but was put back into limbo when Coinbase pulled its support of that bill because they did not like the prohibitions against making payments that they're calling rewards to the holders of digital assets or to the account holders for having assets on deposit with those firms or for staking. The same kinds of provisions for which they're seeking carte blanche under HB 859. And the other foundational point that is critical is that if this bill passes as written, there will be no regulator in Maryland who can touch this. Nobody can deal with the billions of dollars in fraud that's going on in this market, not necessarily but by these players who are testifying, but by others who are here. When you refer things to our office, we're going to have to say to you, there is no one who can help you or help your constituents, and there's no one in the federal government now, in the past, or definitely not under the current administration, that is going to be concerned with what is going on with one Maryland investor and their losses. Now turn things over to Max Brower.
Thank you. This bill is a special interest carve-out that tilts the playing field and preempts potentially vast swaths of law just because a digital asset happens to be used. I'm going to focus on two provisions, 1302 and 1303 in this bill. 1302, which we haven't talked about a lot, preempts any law that impairs or restricts transfer, custody, or acceptance as payment of a digital asset. Now, when proponents of this bill are saying incorrectly that registration is a ban, imagine what they are going to argue is an impairment or a restriction. We have safekeeping requirements for third parties that custody others' assets. Those would be impaired or restricted by this bill. Any registration or licensing, which is already, proponents say, a ban, would be out the window. Anti-fraud and asset forfeiture laws restrict the ability to custody and transfer assets using illegal means. This bill only has a narrow exception for money transmitter law, which only covers the moment in time when assets are being transferred from point A to point B, or the Consumer Protection Act, which only covers goods and services that are used for personal, family, or household purposes. Now, when it comes to Section 1303 of this bill, that preempts investment contract law. Just for one narrow category, though, when a business pools digital assets all together for staking. Investment contracts are bedrock securities laws arising out of our Great Depression that contribute to our free, deep, and robust capital markets. Two federal courts have said that the SEC adequately alleged that Coinbase and Binance's staking enterprise is a security when the SEC in about a dozen states, including Maryland, brought actions for just registration violations. Again, not a ban. All they have to do is come in and pay a nominal registration fee if someone wants to start an enterprise that pools together lots and lots of others' digital assets, bind them to the blockchain, and profit from them. This bill, thank you for your time. I'll just wait for questions.
We're going to begin with Delegate Adams and then Delegate Boafo.
Thank you. So I guess my question goes in line with what the sponsor said during his testimony, or at least back and forth, which is we have neighboring states that seem to be doing things differently than what your testimony is driving at. And so my question goes to is how do you think it's helping consumers when Maryland's sort of taking this, I'm not going to call it a unique approach, but the neighboring states don't seem to be choosing the same direction. Clearly, these are emerging technologies, and consumers desire doing business with organizations like, I guess, like Coinbase. I'm familiar with Coinbase. And are you worried at all about how Maryland and their consumers are going to be treated differently in relationship to what's happening elsewhere in the region or the nation?
I have found it very interesting that Coinbase has chosen not to do a simple registration to take care of staking. The position that's been taken by that industry is we're disruptors, we can do what we want, we don't want to be subject to the same kind of requirements. They're taking deposits, the people who are buying digital assets are taking money out of banks, out of community banks, national banks, and moving it into these other products. They're being able to be paid the equivalent of interest, but they have none of the safeguards. There's nobody's there making sure the money's there, doing audits, doing inspections, requiring disclosure to investors or depositors. They want to operate with nothing going on. Now, as Max said, the SEC had brought a case. They dropped the case when the administration changed. 12 states brought the case also. We don't necessarily say this has to go through everything that's full-blown under the Securities Act, but there needs to be protections in place for investors, and especially protections when things fall apart, and this bill pulls everything out of it. We could work with them. We could come up with an exemption from some of the things with the Securities Act, but the fundamental protection for investors still need to be there, because otherwise there's going to be no one there to go to when these things blow up.
So I'm only pressing my point here because the question I was asking had more to do with the fact that Maryland is doing something different than the other states. And let me just take one other point of question and let you answer. The gentleman to your left shook his head. But if you want to disagree with me, please. Yeah. But the other question is, Coinbase's testimony was that there are no examples of the concerns that you seem to be sharing where consumers have been harmed in doing business with them under their platform. So, are consumers asking for this, or, because I'm not seeing, I don't think we're going to see consumers at the hearing table talking about how they've been defrauded. So I'm trying to press this only with respect to your job, which is laudable and important, but are we off base in Maryland in this regard? So please go right ahead and answer to the best of your ability.
Sure. I want to clear up the misnomer that Maryland is off base. Investment contract.
Well, that's my words.
Sure, sure. Well,
okay, so it's
yeah. Well, I want to clear up the notion. Yeah, or the Maryland's off base.
Well, I'm allowed to be off base.
Sure. You're not off base, sir, but okay. I do believe the proponents of this bill are.
Okay.
Other states aren't doing things differently with, to best of my knowledge, one narrow exception, and that's Kentucky. Let me sort of explain this. Investment contract law is the same in all 50 states and federally. Maryland adopted the Uniform Securities Act, just like many other states out there. Now, District of Columbia, same law. Virginia, same law. Pennsylvania, same law. Delaware, same law. What's different is that certain states in the SEC under the previous administration brought an action for registration violations of investment contract law. Proponents of this bill went into Kentucky and said we didn't like being sued, so they offered a bill similar to this, and then that bill passed. So now, yes, it's preempted in Kentucky. Wisconsin, same story. This bill is currently pending in Wisconsin. There was a hearing on it, I believe, about a week ago. But in other states, it's not different. If you're pooling other people's assets together, all right, and making a profit off that and giving some of that profit to the persons who own the assets, that's an investment contract. It's been an investment contract for 80 years, and it needs to be registered here. The program does involve risk. I heard, the chances of being struck by lightning. The truth is that there's risk for lightning too. There's a reason why people don't stand under trees or go swimming. And what the registration does, why it's important, is because of the disclosure there. So that if I have an enterprise and I'm taking in assets and I'm going to stake them on the blockchain for many, many, many people out there, I disclose all the risks there. so that investors can make an intelligent decision and say, hey, look, company A, they're doing a good job to mitigate the risk. I think this is way less riskier than being struck by lightning, or maybe not. Maybe there's a business out there that's not mitigating the risk, and we heard testimony just now from some examples of where there certainly have been risks that weren't mitigated.
Okay.
All registration does is allow for disclosure so people can make free and transparent decisions.
Chair, let me just ask my last question, and then my concern is that short of federal action, each state can, yes, do their own thing. I'm saying that you're confusing consumers. You're also making it hard for businesses that have a multi-state footprint to say, okay, I got to do it with Maryland this way, and I got to do it with, Virginia or Kentucky, whatever Wisconsin. And either you agree with my principle that this is the problem or you don't, and it appears that you don't. And if that's the case, just say so and we'll move on.
So if I could answer that, because I've been in the Securities Division for 40 years,
Sure.
and I've been the commissioner for 28. Each division, each state securities division can choose to enforce what they want to enforce. There are states that dropped out of this multi-state action to try and get the digital asset community into compliance because of politics and not necessarily because of what is best for their constituency. That's going on here. We are still pursuing this. We think it's important. We think it's very important that investors have the information they need to make an informed investment decision. By not registering, they don't have this, and by this bill, the language of this bill is so broad that it's going to take even prosecutors out of the space if there's a big fraud. It says no law can impinge on anything going on with this. That's tremendous, and there is going to be no one for Marylanders to go to when there are problems in an area that's broader than just staking. It goes to all digital assets. So even all the seniors who are being defrauded, all the people who go to a Bitcoin ATM and buy Bitcoin and then send it to somebody and it ends up God knows where in the Soviet Union after being transferred on the blockchain, will have nobody in Maryland who could protect them.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Let me start by saying, Delegate Adams, I agree with you. It's a bipartisan moment there. Here's my problem. Oftentimes in Maryland, when new technology emerges, we decide, you know what, it's easier to just play by the old rules. And while, look, I think I'm the one person in this room that agrees this should be federal law. I think everybody in this room knows that. It's not, and the Congress hasn't acted. And Madam Commissioner, while to echo Delegate Adams' point, I do agree that your job is extraordinarily important. But what is extraordinarily clear in this process is that you are becoming one of the only security commissioners in this country that is not allowing this to happen. And I know, normally I wasn't going to say anything, but when someone impugns the intention of a bill that I bring, I find that deeply personal and disrespectful.
I apologize if you thought it was disrespectful.
Thank you. Here's the reality. 46 other states and the District of Columbia allow this to happen. My job as a legislator is to come to the table and figure out what is best for Maryland consumers, especially in my district. If you walk through my district right now, and I'm doing that a lot these days, and you talk to folks, and you talk about emerging technology and blockchain and crypto and staking, what you'll find is that there's a lot of seniors who are actually investing in this and the benefit of a new market that's emerging in America. Again, I agree, it should be federal law. But for some reason, Madam Commissioner, I can't understand why you guys haven't come to the table to try to figure out a solution to this. Why you guys haven't come to a solution to say, look, the unfavorable with amendment said, look, we want more guidelines on who actually oversees the program. I think Delegate Shi, to her benefit, spent this entire interim working through with OFR on amendments to make sure that they were the arbiters of this program. That doesn't change. You want it in legislative text? Sure, we'll put it in there. But we can't keep doing the same playbook here in Maryland of acting like this market isn't emerging, acting like it doesn't exist, and somehow your office continually to be the only one in the country at this point. New Jersey is moving this bill at rapid pace. There are Republican states moving this bill at rapid pace. And somehow in your testimony, which is why you can see how I'm really upset, we made this a partisan issue.
I don't.
I am not finished, Madam Commissioner.
Sorry.
At a time in which our consumers are really struggling through things, they have found a market to actually allow them to get more money. And we're saying, you know what, we're going to be the only state that doesn't do it. You just heard from businesses, Black, Latino businesses, who just came to this table and said, you know what, I may go somewhere else if this doesn't work in Maryland. And sorry, Madam Chair, for being on my soapbox here. And anyone in this committee knows I normally am not on my soapbox in this committee when I'm here these days. But what is extraordinarily disappointing to me is that in your testimony, Madam Commissioner, you used language that was fear-mongering at its worst, that seniors were going to be hurt, that folks were going to be put down by this. Instead of coming to the table and playing ball through the legislative process, my job is to deliver the bills. Your job is to figure out how we make them better and stronger. I really appreciate the testimony from the first person here. Because what you said was the amendments, which, Madam Commissioner, if you have not seen, I'll make sure we resend to you. The amendments make this bill a lot stronger. And OFR, who does have oversight over this? I don't know why where we're getting this, the Attorney General's office all of a sudden loses all of its agency and power in going after fraud and abuse. When does that ever happen?
It happens by this bill.
Madam Commissioner, please. When has that ever happened? Here's what I'm going to charge you with, because clearly this is isn't that so question, Madam Chair. Come to the table so that the millions of Marylanders who are using this product have the ability to stake. Because in about a year or two, it will just be you as the sole commissioner in this country not allowing this to happen. Again, I want the federal government to act. The SEC, both under the former president and this one, since we were being partisan in our remarks here, have said they don't believe staking is a security. Yet you somehow are the only person who's arguing against it. So, Madam Chair, as you could tell, not really happy with those comments or the impugning of my legislative integrity here. But I urge us to really kind of figure out a solution and pathway here so that the 15% of Marylanders that continue to grow, especially in my community, have the ability to stake, earn rewards, and do something meaningful. And I disagree with the assertion that OFR and the Attorney General's office all of a sudden doesn't have any oversight.
May I respond?
I'll give you 10 seconds or so.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I think the most important thing I should say is I didn't intend to impugn anything. The prior SEC administration did think that this was a security, and that case got dropped with the new administration, and there are court cases to back that up. We are concerned about investor protection, and we are happy to work with the committee to figure out what language would work to, make sure people are protected and that the Attorney General's office still has jurisdiction to bring fraud and abusive cases.
See no further questions. Thank you very much for your testimony. See no further witnesses. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 859. We will now go to House Bill 1049. Is Delegate Crosby being represented? Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
You did great.
Chair Valderrama and esteemed members of the Economic Matters Committee. For the record, my name is Ashani Tiagi. I'm an intern with Delegate Brian Crosby's office, and I will be introducing House Bill 1049 on Delegate Crosby's behalf. With me on the panel today is Rory Murray from MD DC Credit Union Association. House Bill 1049, Credit Unions, Mergers and Consolidations, Alteration of Voting Requirement, aligns state chartered credit union merging requirements with federal legislation by eliminating the requirement for surviving credit union merger approval. Under current law, state credit unions seeking a merger must receive a majority vote by both the merging credit union and the surviving credit union. Maryland's law conflicts with the Federal Credit Union Act, which only requires approval by the merging credit union. Without House Bill 1049, state chartered credit unions seeking a merger will continue to be encumbered by significant costs and delays. The goal of this legislation is to reduce a procedural barrier by giving state chartered credit unions parity with their federal counterparts. In short, House Bill 1049 ensures that state credit unions are not subject to a requirement that does not apply to federal credit unions. Thank you for your consideration of House Bill 1049. Delegate Crosby respectfully requests a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, I'm still Rory Murray here on behalf of the Maryland and DC Credit Union Association. Much simpler bill than the last one. The long and short of it is under the Federal Credit Union Act, when there's a merger between two credit unions, the boards of each credit union approve the merger. Keep in mind the boards are members of the credit union, democratically voted into their position by the membership of the credit union. If they decide to move forward with a merger, the regulator then does their due diligence to make sure there's no safety and soundness issues, and then the members of the merging credit union, the one that's going to disappear into the surviving credit union, take a full membership vote. And the reason for that is pretty simple. They are the ones that are going to have things change. They're going to need new cards, they're going to go to new places, they're going to need a new website, so they need an affirmative vote. There's no requirement for the surviving membership to vote because nothing in practice changes for them. They just keep going on. They now just have new friends in the credit union. For reasons I can't figure out, Maryland's state charter requires that both full credit union memberships vote for the merger. So it just adds on usually a few months of time because you have to do a meeting of the full membership, you have to do ballots, tabulations, and for some of the credit unions in Maryland, they've got 10, 20, 30,000 members. It becomes a really big process. We didn't realize it until recently, and when it came up, we tried to figure out why Maryland was different, and nobody could find a reason. So we talked to OFR, we talked to, basically just OFR in the AG's office to make sure they were okay with this, and everybody said, oh, that's weird. Yeah, sure, we're fine. So narrow change to the law to make life a little bit easier for our credit unions. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any questions. Ishani, if you could give our regards to Delegate Crosby, that'd be great. No questions, no further witnesses. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1049. Is Delegate Hill here? No. We will skip to House Bill 1089. Delegate Wu?
Good afternoon, Chair Balderrama, Vice Chair Chakodian, and member of the Economic Matters Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Chao presenting Bill HB 1089. HB 1089 will create a way for Maryland residents to identify data brokers operating in our state and understand their practices. A publicly accessible registry through the Office of Attorney General empowers consumers with information while still allowing lawful business to operate. In the modern digital youth, data transparency is no longer optional, it is essential. Every day, Maryland residents generate vast amounts of personal information through online purchases, social media activities, health apps, financial transactions, and location services. Much of this data is collected and sold by third-party data brokers without consumers even knowing who holds their information and how it is being used. This is why transparency is so necessary. We need to know what's going on behind the scenarios, and so that individuals make an informed decision about their privacy and understand who profits from their personal data. When data practices are unclear, the consequence can be severe. Unregulated or undisclosed data sharing increases the risk of identity theft, financial fraud, discriminatory profiling, and invasive targeted advising. Sensitive data, such as the precise location history, can be used in a way that harm consumers economically and socially. Without visibility into this practice, consumers have little ability to protect themselves or hold companies accountable. We have seen the real-world impact of insufficient oversight in major breaches. For example, in 2017, breach of Equifax exposed the personal information of approximately 148 million Americans, including social security numbers and birth dates. More recently, the 2023 data breach at 23andMe compromised sensitive generic and ancestry data of millions of users. This instance illustrates how deeply personal information can be exposed and misused when adequate safeguards and transparency mechanisms are not in place. Maryland would not be acting alone in establishing a data broker registry. California requires data brokers to register under the Delete Act and broader consumer privacy laws. Vermont was one of the first states to implement a public data broker registry, providing residents with visibility into who collects and sells their data. Oregon has also adopted a similar transparency measure. This state demonstrates that a registry system is both visible and effective. A clear, publicly accessible database will not prohibit lawful business operation. Rather, it is established accountability. It provides consumers with knowledge and signals to people that Maryland value transparency and privacy in the digital marketplace. In closing, HB 1089 helps protect and, more importantly, empower consumers to hold companies accountable. In an age where privacy, especially online, is increasingly rare, the bill provides a practical and a balanced step forward. I'm open to the Attorney General's amendment as well, so I respectfully ask for favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Queen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the bill, Delegate. Just a question. You mentioned a couple of states that already do this, California, Vermont, Oregon. Is this bill patterned after any of those states, or which one?
Yeah, it patterns them after California.
It's California's bill? Okay, thank you.
See no further questions. Thank you, Delegate Wu. We'll move on to the unfavorables. Zachary Taylor, Kaylee Locklear.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Zachary Taylor. I am the Director of Government Relations for the Consumer Data Industry Association. We represent the consumer reporting agencies, background check companies, tenant screeners, and those involved in identity verification and fraud detection. We are here today in respectful opposition to the proposal before you. We believe that in its attempt to regulate data aggregators by using an arbitrary standard that relies on whether or not the information was collected directly from a consumer, it does not provide the intended protections to consumers and may increase confusion. Our member companies are tightly regulated already under a variety of federal statutes, including the Federal Fair Credit Reporting Act, the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, the Driver's Privacy Protection Act, to name a few. Our work is important. It helps consumers access credit, employment, housing, as well as be protected from fraud and identity theft. Under this bill, it seems that companies who are tightly regulated, and also I would add exempt largely from Maryland's data privacy statute, would be required to register as data brokers with the Attorney General. If the concern with the collection and use of data is, if the state has concerns about that, it seems better to ensure that it covers the entire activity, or alternatively that the bill is more closely aligned with the decisions made by the state when they adopted the comprehensive data privacy statute that matches up with 20 other states. We would note that the definitions used in this bill do not align with some of the other laws out there, and that creates the confusion and complexity between other data privacy statutes as well. Our request from the committee is that this bill be rejected for those grounds because it mismatches consumer protection with the existing data privacy statute. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. No questions. We do have another unfavorable virtually. Margaret Durkin? No? Okay, she is not present. Seeing no further witnesses, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1089. Is Delegate Hill here? Still not here. Okay, Delegate Jacobs. There you go. House Bill 1395.
right now. Everybody ready? All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the Economic Matters Committee. I'm here today to present House Bill 1395, which is a bill to create a lemon law protection for farm machinery in Maryland. Currently, there are 10 states that either have or are moving to a specific farm machinery lemon law. They are Georgia, Illinois, North Dakota, South Dakota, Missouri, Minnesota, New York, New Jersey, Arkansas, and Wisconsin. Farming is the true lifeblood of Maryland, and agriculture is the biggest industry. It is essential that we do everything we can to support our farmers so they can carry on with their work uninterrupted by defective equipment. This bill will give confidence to our farmers as they invest in new equipment, knowing that if it does not perform as expected, they have recourse. This bill allows defective implements and equipment to be repaired and or replaced when they break down. One of the greatest expenses for farmers is their equipment. This legislation brings farm equipment in the same protection that already exists for cars and trucks. Passing this bill helps Maryland farmers remain competitive regionally and in the global market. Agricultural equipment is not included in this legislation is listed on page 3 of the bill. If agricultural equipment does not conform to all applicable warranties under the warranty period, the consumer during the warranty period shall report the nonconformity, defect, or condition by providing written notice to the manufacturer or factory branch by certified mail, return receipt requested. It shall be the duty of the dealer to notify the manufacturer of any notice received. The consumer shall provide an opportunity for the manufacturer or factory branch or its agent or dealer to correct the nonconformity, defect, or condition at no charge to the consumer, regardless of whether the repairs are made after the expiration of the warranty period. After a reasonable number of attempts, the manufacturer or factory branch, its agent, or its authorized dealer is unable to repair or correct any defect in the condition that substantially impairs the use and market value of the agricultural equipment to the consumer, the manufacturer or factory branch, at the option of the consumer, shall replace the agricultural equipment with comparable agricultural equipment that is acceptable to the consumer, or refund to the consumer the full purchase price, including all license fees, registration fees, and any similar governmental charges, less reasonable allowance for damage that is not attributable to normal wear or nonconformity, defect, or condition. This is an affirmative defense to a claim if the nonconformity, defect, or condition is the result of abuse, neglect, or unauthorized modifications or alterations of the agricultural equipment. If the nonconformity, defect, or condition has been subject to repair 4 or more times by the manufacturer or factory branch or its agents or authorized dealers within a warranty period, but the problem continues to exist, and if the agricultural equipment is out of service during the season for use for a cumulative total of 30 or more calendar days during the warranty period due to the repair or attempted repair of one or more of the nonconformities or defects determined a warranty, shall be extended by any time during which repair services are not available to the consumer by reason of war, invasion, strike, fire, flood, or other natural disaster. We need to protect the huge investments that farmers make in their equipment. With the passage of this bill, HB 1395, farmers in my district and around the state can now be confident in making investments in new, more efficient equipment. In closing, unlike many other products, farm machinery is time sensitive especially during planting and harvesting seasons. It can be extremely expensive, if available, to rent a piece of equipment to complete planting or harvesting. Also, I want to point out that the farm machinery today, if you buy a normal tractor for farming operations, at least $500,000 or more, combines are $1 million or more. These sprayers with the big arms that stick out the side, they start at about $750,000 to $1 million. So, you know, this equipment is very expensive. It's highly technical, and sometimes they just get electrical bugs and other things in them that just is, you know, hard to get fixed. And as I said earlier, it's a very time-sensitive issue when you're in this very tight window of planting and harvesting. So I ask for your favorable report, and I did want to point out the Office of Attorney General's letter. I thought stated it better than I could have actually, and what the bill is trying to do. So I'll turn it over to my panel.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Grayson Middleton, I'm Government Affairs for Delmarva Chicken Association, and we're the trade organization representing the meat chicken growers, companies, and allied businesses in Maryland, the Eastern Shore of Virginia, and Delaware. Here in strong support of HB 1395. As the delegate alluded to, agricultural equipment is essential for the function of our operations in all of agriculture, but maybe particularly chicken farming. One chicken house can have several $100,000 worth of equipment that is meant for not only, you know, the safe operation of the farm, but also for the safety and welfare of the animals within it. So some of this equipment includes fans, feeders, heating apparatuses, temperature sensors, and coolers. And the malfunction of any of those equipment for even a very short amount of time can result in very high mortality events, which can impact a very big portion of our farmers' annual income. And so we ask that these folks are given the same consumer protection as many others in the state. And with that, we urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, Tyler Huff, Maryland Farm Bureau, here today in support of the bill, and want to thank Delegate Jacobs for his work on this bill and bringing it back again this year. This bill, as you heard, farm machinery, farm equipment is very expensive. It is a high cost investment. It is something that is very, very not only necessity, but important from a timeliness standpoint when it comes to getting the crop in the ground or getting the crop harvested. And any little thing that goes wrong, especially if it's an issue that compounds on itself or is repeatable, let's be honest, sometimes equipment doesn't always work as it's intended. We have the same consumer protections with vehicles for a reason. Sometimes the best laid plans just don't work. So by moving this legislation, it gives the farmers peace of mind that their investment into their equipment is going to be backed. It's going to be something that they can rely on. And if something does go wrong, they have that protection within that specific warranty period to be able to get the problem fixed, no matter what that cost might be, because of that cost just compounding on top of the initial investment. So for these reasons, as well as others, the members of Maryland Farm Bureau respectfully request a favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lindsay Thompson, here today on behalf of the Maryland Grain Producers Association. You've heard a lot about the expense and trouble that this can cause, and so I'd just like to say that House Bill 1395 establishes a clear and fair process for addressing warranty issues on agricultural equipment specifically. It provides manufacturers and dealers with an opportunity to repair these defects while also ensuring that farmers have meaningful remedies when equipment cannot be fixed properly. Creates transparency and accountability in this warranty process and helps protect Maryland farmers from bearing the financial burden of repeated defective equipment. I'd like to give you an example, and I think actually one of the reasons that Delegate Jacobs brought this bill, there was a young farmer who purchased a piece of equipment that they relied on every single day to feed their cattle on their farm. And within the first couple of weeks, it was already exhibiting defects. They let the dealer know, And I think in total, that piece of equipment went back and forth for the same repair 6 times over the period of a couple of years. They would get it back, it would work for a couple weeks, it wouldn't work, they'd send it back, the dealer would have it for a couple of months, they would get it back. And eventually the warranty period on that piece of equipment did run out, and they are stuck with a lemon piece of equipment. So they were out several tens of thousands of dollars without operable equipment and no remedy to solve that issue. So we would request your favorable report. Thank you.
And if I may follow up, Madam Chair, I am offering, I've ordered a sponsor amendment to, on page 6, to strike lines 28, 29. It's redundant with lines 30 through 32, so I'm striking 28, 29. And on page 7, line 12, where it says $10,000, it's going to be $5,000. The amendment would go to $5,000 instead of 10. And they were recommendations from my conversations and work with John Deere.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate Jacobs. I will say, based on the amendments you just offered, if you could have that submitted, council's taking note, but for you to bring those amendments to council
Should I bring them here?
That would, yeah, bring to the committee, that would be great. I don't see any questions for you or your panel. Thank you very much. And I don't, oh, we have one informational virtual? No? Okay. Kip McGuire did not show up. So with no further witnesses, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1395. Has Delegate Hill, is she here? Okay, thank you.
All right,
Delegate Hill with House Bill 1399.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Economic Matters Committee. I'm here to present House Bill 1399, Consumer Protection, Consumer Reporting Agencies and Use of Algorithmic Systems. So as a background, I just want to be clear that when we talk about algorithmic systems, we're not talking about something that's new, although we have new versions of it. Algorithmic systems are essentially processes by which you put data in, it gets massaged a certain way that's been predetermined, and something comes out of it. And we've been using algorithmic systems since time immemorial. What has changed, of course, is that we're now in the age of automation and high technology, and with algorithmic systems that are automated, so-called AI, and becoming more intelligent every day, there are not only great potential for advancement and achievement and all these things, but there's also a great deal of risk. What House Bill 1399 does, it attempts to establish some accountability and transparency standards for consumer reporting agencies that use algorithmic systems, whether automated or not. That being said, since we introduced the legislation, we have been in conversations with the Consumer Data Industry Association, even as recently as yesterday, and they have pointed out several problems with the bill and have suggested that perhaps we should have withdrawn it, and I respect their willingness to engage. But at the same time, we've also been engaging with the Maryland Responsible AI Council, which was an organization that was formed of researchers in automated systems and machine learning, largely from Morgan State University and University of Maryland, Baltimore County, but as well as other people who have broad experience in these areas, much greater than I. And they exist primarily to support the state in its efforts to put up the kinds of systems and guardrails that we need to support our constituencies. So we asked them to weigh in on this bill and make some suggestions, and they did, but we did not get them until after the time for uploading. So I believe that information has been sent, their letter has been sent to every committee member, although it will not be in your public bill file. They have several suggestions that we are willing to take, and it starts off essentially by saying that this bill does address a growing reality in modern financial services. Consumer reporting agencies increasingly relying on automated and algorithmic systems to evaluate credit worthiness. Their suggestions, which I'll enumerate quickly, are as follows: that instead of establishing fixed numerical performance thresholds, that we authorize the Commissioner of Financial Regulation to set and periodically update the standards through regulation. Second, they point out that there's no clear enforcement mechanism, and they recommend establishing civil penalties, regulatory authority for the commission, probably through the administrative court system, to suspend and restrict non-compliant entities. They note that the provision requiring human review of every automated evaluation within 24 hours is unwieldy and ridiculous. And as the sponsor of the bill, I would 100% agree, and I know that everybody at CDIA would also agree. But they do suggest that we can have some effect towards the goal by focusing on the human review points which are most critical, such as the final point where an adverse credit decision is made. And so we can narrow that down. Their next point is that the bill introduces requirement to measure, quote, discriminatory data rates, and that term is not defined, and they suggest instead that we anchor bias assessments to well-recognized legal frameworks already used in credit, housing, and employment law, including disparate impact analysis under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. And I will note in discussions with CDIA, much of their points were that the Equal Credit Opportunity Act already exists and therefore nothing else is needed. I suggest that that is not true, that we know the feds have been well behind on putting the protections in place that consumers require. Europe and other nations are far ahead of us, and other states are doing so as well. And finally, the Maryland Responsible AI Council notes some previous concerns having to do with consumer reporting that this bill has in it that really aren't relevant, and suggests that we remove references and requirements having to do with detecting synthetic media and deep fake detection, that's really not, this bill is not the place for those kinds of concerns. And they point out that while federal law governs many aspects of consumer reporting, algorithmic governance and auditing requirements represent a distinct area, this is a quote, that federal statutes written decades ago did not anticipate. Therefore, a carefully drafted savings clause preserving the bill's provisions to the extent permitted by federal law would help us address those concerns. So those are amendments that I will be presenting. I know it seems like a lot, but I think that if the committee believes that this effort is worth it, and these are the kind of provisions that we have, that we'll make every effort to get those to you in a way that you can consider them, weigh them, and hopefully adopt them. And with that.
Thank you, Delegate Hill. I do not see any questions for you.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have the gentleman from Advanced Technology Acceleration Initiative. If you could just state your name for the record.
My name is Hussein Waheed, and I'm with the Advanced Technology Acceleration Initiative together with University of Maryland College Park. And I just wanted to thank Dr. Terry Hill for putting this together. It helps the other initiatives that we have been working on and the bill that we have in review process at present. I mentioned earlier, HB 1570 integrates the development process and review processes that have to occur almost simultaneously. And Maryland has been a leader in this field for separate applications, for industrial applications for a long time. And essentially, that's the reason we have been using NIST methodologies for verification, validation, and calibration of the outputs. They have worked so well, as I mentioned earlier, that they are considered national standards now. And we are trying to expand the utilization of these methodologies to different operations within government agencies or even private sector, wherever there is interface with conventional technologies and advanced technologies. These interactive implementation specifications and standards methodologies help tremendously, and they are the ones responsible for delivering transformative economic efficiency. And I'm going to point later on in HB 1570 how the surveys conducted by a student legislative lead here in Daniel Young's office have contributed significantly to the adoption of these methodologies. And they are transferable. They can be utilized nationally and internationally. We have not attempted the international use because we used the methodologies that existed before through UNESCO's collaboration, but now is a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any questions for you. Thank you very much for your testimony. We do have one unfavorable witness, Zachary Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Good to be here again. Zachary Taylor, Director of Government Relations for the Consumer Data Industry Association. We represent the consumer reporting agencies. I think it's important in the context of this bill to note two things: that consumer reporting agencies are not credit scoring companies in and of themselves, and they are also not the ultimate deciders in relation to the use of a consumer report. As I mentioned in relation to the last bill, we are tightly regulated at the federal level by the Federal Fair Credit Reporting Act. It establishes the limited permissible purposes for which a user of a consumer report can request that report. It also establishes clear requirements for what can be included in consumer reporting, as well as robust rights for consumers to know what is being collected about them, to know when those reports are being accessed, how those reports are being used in the event of an adverse determination, receive a copy of the report, dispute any inaccurate information therein, and in that case, possibly be reconsidered. Consumer reports are used for a variety of purposes, including lending, as well as tenancy and employment. The ability to access these products when they are complete and accurate is important for Marylanders to be able to easily access consumer credit, whether it be auto loans or home loans, tenancy or employment. Our concern with the structure of this bill, whether applied to consumer reporting agencies or the system more broadly, is that it overrides what exists at the federal level, and it conflicts with Maryland law. While we certainly appreciate the intent of the sponsor to ensure that discrimination is not present in the provision of financial services, housing, or employment, Maryland already has strong laws on the books related to discrimination. This would complicate the system. It could result in destroying everyone's credit reports by setting standards so high for data points that it would be impossible to meet. For example, 1,000 data points is equal to 83 years. You would have to be 101 if you got a credit card at 18 for that to show up on a credit report. That would lower scores and make it harder to access credit. We appreciate the intent. We believe existing law can help, and we would look forward to answering questions from the committee and ask you respectfully to oppose this bill.
Seeing no questions, Mr. Taylor, thank you very much for your testimony this afternoon. Seeing no further witnesses, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1399. We'll now move on to House Bill 1456. Delegate Embry, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it all right if the favorable witnesses join me? Thank you. Shall I start? Thank you. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and all the wonderful members here. It's good to see you and be back here. So this bill arises from Delegate Boyce and I had conversations in our district and in the city about the issues related to squatting. And I want to thank, well, the people here, but especially Mr. Turner, and Mr. Matt Hill, because this approach came from those conversations and their suggestions. What we saw in Baltimore City and then we see in national data is many of the scams related to false properties falsely offered for rent or for sale are found online on social media platforms, on Craigslist, on other other platforms. And so the approach here is to require those entities to provide some verification that the person posting the property for rent or for sale actually legally can do so, and then have it enforceable through the Consumer Protection Division of the Attorney General's office. So that is, and there, as we found, that New York State is pursuing the same approach. It has not passed, but we looked at their bill for ideas and actually made some modifications based on that. But the goal is simple. It just requires that before the property is posted, the entity doing the posting or allowing the posting has to verify. They also have to maintain the evidence of verification for 3 years. That's both for their protection if an action is brought against them, but also for enforcement. If they find that the person is not legally able to post the property, they have to take it down immediately. And again, it's enforceable through the Consumer Protection Act. Specifically, it would constitute an unfair, abusive, or deceptive trade practice. So with that, I will turn over to my panel. And the last thing I'll say is we know this is a problem. We've all seen the stories about squatting. We've heard about scams, but the FTC has 65,000 cases of fraud reported since 2020. And since 2025, I believe, half of those scams have been originated on Facebook. So I think this is not just a problem that we're seeing in Maryland, but obviously a national problem. So we could be the first of all the states to pass legislation like this. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Albert Turner. I'm an attorney with the Public Justice Center. I provide free legal advice to tenants in Baltimore City, as well as the state of Maryland, asking for a favorable report. The last 2 years, squatters has been a hot topic in Annapolis, and what we think we have been missing in this discussion is identifying the problems at its very root. Very often, we're talking about trying to get a person who's unauthorized out of a property where the damage has already been done, where the tenant has been scammed, where the property owner finds someone without authorization to be in there, or they have to go to do a wrongful detainer. And there's profits that's lost, there is a fast move that has to be done, and everyone loses. What we're looking for in this way is to hit the problem at its root, which means that, I don't know if I had to take a look myself, when I took a look on Craigslist, Facebook, for properties, the real estate and property market on these websites are very, very tough to matriculate. I can tell you about many clients that I know of who are desperate for housing, find someplace on Craigslist, give their first month's rent, security deposit, and all of a sudden they find themselves in a unit that they thought that they were renting legally, but they are not. And so we are looking to ensure that this issue is actually solved at its root. As you can see, if we're going on Facebook, if you want to buy something, if you want to buy diamond encrusted Hello Kitty air purifier, you can do so. If you want to do something by going on Craigslist or Facebook to rent an apartment, you don't need to actually come across someone. They give you a code. They say, send me a Venmo or Cash App, and I'll let you into the unit, and there's a lockbox and you can move in. And so these are fast-changing things that the state needs to keep up with to ensure that folk aren't scammed, property owners aren't finding unauthorized people in their homes. We ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman and members of the committee. My name is Dara Patel. I'm a law student at University of Maryland Francis King Carey School of Law. As you've heard today, online rental scams are a common issue. Renters are simply trying to find safe and affordable housing, yet they're met with individuals who don't own the property, nor do they manage that property. In this situation, renters are losing out on so much. They're losing out on their application fee, their deposit, and even personal information. House Bill 1456 addresses this issue straightforward, and this solution is not groundbreaking. We see many other states like New York implementing this requirement of verifying whether the poster is authorized to post the property listing. This approach is both practical and legally sound. Chair members Chair, members of the committee, Maryland has the opportunity today to join a broader legislative movement, one that recognizes the importance of protecting consumers and preventing fraud from occurring in our state. I respectfully urge you to support House Bill 1456 and help ensure that renters are not misled by fraudulent posting. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Zafar Shah from Maryland Legal Aid. We urge a favorable report on House Bill 1456. It is a preventative solution to a problem that increasingly we're seeing in the veritable emergency room of district court. We at Maryland Legal Aid handled 4,700 eviction cases last year. We increasingly have seen rent scam victims at court desperately trying to stop the inevitable, which we cannot prevent. This bill, again, it's about preventing a problem at a systems level. I've, in my written testimony, shared a story of a woman who I call Nora. I can't provide her real name, who we met at district court and could not help. Nora, while homeless, wrote out her own personal narrative, which I've shared with you, and I'll share some of it now. She wrote, "I was looking for a new home because my previous landlord was being foreclosed on. I had agreed to be out by a certain date. I wanted to stay in the area because my son, who was autistic, was attending a great special needs school in Anne Arundel County. I texted the number. I met a person claiming to be the property manager. I'm a hardworking mother. I have no criminal record. I was working full-time while my husband was awaiting medical clearance to return to his job. The house gave us a place for our son to be loud and scream. Everyone basically treated me like I did this, being a quote-unquote squatter, to myself, or that I was the wrongdoer. How was I to know the property was not for rent? The sheriff who evicted me explained that there's no way for the public to know a real owner apart from an imposter." Nora writes, "Websites like Zillow, HotPads, and Facebook Marketplace are not protecting users from scams. Sometimes I feel that I let my family down by getting scammed, but it's not all on me." I hope the legislature will do something for Nora, and we urge a favorable report.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Bevan-Dangle. I'm the Deputy Director of Economic Action Maryland Fund, and we're here in strong support of this legislation. You've heard one story. I was actually talking to a good personal friend whose neighbor turned out to have fallen victim to this scam. It was an absentee property owner, an older lady. She was not actively renting the apartment. She wanted to do some repairs. Facebook scammer posted the apartment, took a full year of rent in advance. And that's how desperate people are to find affordable housing in the communities of choice. Her neighbor, this tenant, paid $55,000 to be in this apartment, and it turned out the entire thing was a scam. They only found out because there was a water break. No one had the ability to fix it, and now my friend's basement is flooded. That's the least of our problems. But you have an older lady who owns the unit who now has tremendous repairs she has to make. She did not know there was someone in the unit. And you have someone who's been evicted who put down significant amounts of money. And again, the real criminal act here was that fraudulent posting. I buy and sell on Facebook. I am one of those people. And it is a very useful tool. But I tend to sell things that if I don't get paid, I can afford to lose the down payment because we know that these are not verified secure sites. It is worth noting that this is not technically or technologically impossible to do. Airbnb and Zillow actually do have pretty good verification systems in place to make sure that those units are going to legitimate owners of the property. And if an entity as large and complex as Airbnb can do this, then it is very equitable to ask for Facebook and Craigslist to do the same and follow suit. We should have standard and industry practices across these platforms so that consumers have a sense of trust when they're engaging with them. And there is data cited around, as the sponsor mentioned, the vast number of scams that are happening that are being reported. And we know people are very often unwilling to report when they are defrauded. So the real numbers are probably even higher than what the data reflects. So we urge a favorable report.
Thank you. We'll begin with Delegate Wyville and then Delegate Pippy.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I just want to know where I can get some of those Hello Kitty air purifiers. Just kidding. Thanks, Delegate, for the bill. I think it's trying to address a real problem out there. So reading the realtor's testimony, they're questioning, because these are national platforms, I assume you're just trying to address properties physically located in Maryland. Correct. Okay. And then who are you verifying with? The folks that are listing the property, or it's kind of broad?
So first of all, happy to amend to address only properties in Maryland, and so that's a very, very friendly suggestion. I did meet with the realtors, and I'm happy to incorporate language that they would suggest in terms of what is already happening in terms of verification with the MPLS. They may be proposing that today, but what we're envisioning is that, for instance, a Facebook, if someone who is a registered Facebook user wants there would be a process if you're posting a property that you have to show, you could show your deed to the property. If you're a broker, you would show your broker's license. I mean, we're very open. We don't specify in the bill that we think is a strength, but obviously the realtors believe more specificity might be helpful. And I'm very open to this committee's views on that. But I think there's different ways to do it. We obviously require age verification and other situations, so very open to strategies that they would suggest.
My other question, because there seems to be fraud is rampant, how do you verify the legitimacy of the document that's provided? People are fabricating deeds, they're fabricating identities, and all sorts of things. So how would they verify that those are actual legitimate?
If I may, we already have a public database, SStat, that shows all these properties are owned by an LLC or by someone. And so I think a deed, which can be cross-referenced with Maryland land records, property contracts, these are the things that I think are ways to filter out. Now, I'm not saying that that's 100% proof, but what I'm saying is that I believe, and what we've seen across the nation, not just in the rental housing market, but in other ways, it really does cut down on the garbage that we see, because folk aren't really trying to put themselves out there even more in this way. And so we believe this would be a really nice safety net, or at the very least a good filter for some of these issues that we see already.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Delegate, thank you for the bill. And like Delegate Wyvil, I think it's certainly, I like the intent behind the bill, because so I do a little landlord-tenant litigation sometimes, and this actually does happen, where people will be aware of several vacant properties on a street, and they'll create a fake lease. They'll list it for rent. Someone will pay, move in, and then the owner of that vacant property finds out someone's living there. And then you take them to court, and then the tenant is like, oh, I got a lease.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, who'd you sign that lease with? Well, I don't know. It was advertised online. I signed it. And it's really not the tenant's fault. Now you could argue that they should have verified, but, how do you verify, right? Even if they went onto like SStat and saw who the owner was, as long as the lease made it seem like that's who was actually listing the property, how would they know? They're not checking the ID of the person listing the property. So my question is this. Is there, because like you mentioned, there's not a lot of specifics in here on what these, like Craigslist, I'll use Craigslist as an example. So what if, Craigslist is probably not gonna like this, but what if Craigslist, for example, if you were a realtor listing, you would have to put in like your realtor ID number.
Yes.
Right, and so that may not change this happening, but what you could kind of, when it becomes an actual complaint, you can see who listed the property, because realtors have to follow a certain guideline when they list properties, due diligence and things of that nature. And then the other thing for some social media sites is you have to enter your driver's license number or some other verification stuff. And the only reason I bring that up is because you could at least find out who listed it, because that's the fraudulent actor. It's not the tenant in many cases. Now, sometimes there is a conspiracy where the tenant conspires with someone else to create a lease and this and that. But I'm just wondering if there's a way to do it where it's not that big of an inconvenience, because this is a very common issue. And the bigger problem is once they get in there, it takes months and months and months to get out. literally. And if it's the wintertime, it could take 5 months to get this person out. So it really screws over, excuse my language, the property owner.
Yes.
Like big time. So I appreciate for once someone coming in here and trying to do something to help the property owner out. Usually it's the opposite that we hear in this committee. But I'd like to work with you on the bill to see if there's maybe the least intrusive possible way for some of these companies that facilitate these listings to participate. Sorry.
So everything you've said, I agree with. We don't want it to be onerous. We want it to be reasonable, but effective. And I think your point about the driver's license number, those are really good ideas. So I would love to work with you. And this came in Baltimore City. It was a property owner that complained because of all the reasons you just expressed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm just, quick question.
Yeah.
How, if this bill passes, does it stop defrauding people? Because the fraudsters are still going to do this with or without this bill.
Well, I don't know. So what we're seeing, both anecdotally in Maryland and then based on this Federal Trade Commission data, is that it is the people who are being scammed are learning about it from these platforms. So if they aren't there, I don't know where they're going to get them. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that is, we've seen Facebook, and then in Baltimore we've seen Instagram. So if we were able to dramatically reduce the fraudulent posts, I think we would see a significant impact in the state.
Well, I'm just arguing that the penalty provisions, which I'll ask the last question here in a minute, but you're putting the onus on the landlord to do a thing, or the property owner, I should say. And the point is, people that are seeking to defraud aren't going to be dissuaded by passage of this bill. That's my only concern.
Well, no, so first of all, this is not the only approach. I'm on judiciary, there are bills being considered about strengthening criminal provisions. Criminal provisions do exist, but strengthening them, we're open to. This is not the entire solution, but if it's harder for the scammers to reach their targets, I think that benefits us.
All right, and then, so my question on the consumer protection, Delegate Pippi and I often talk about.
Yeah, I don't like that part either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a violation could put you in jail for a year. So that's.
Well, we're trying to tie into existing law to reduce the fiscal note and be consistent with the scheme that our great legislature has already created. Okay. But we're open to all friendly suggestions.
Hopefully on that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. I think it is a good way towards alleviating this issue. Just want to ask a quick question based on what my colleague just raised on the effectiveness of this. Have we, and I might have missed it because, as you can see, I got a lot going on up here. Wanted to know if other states have implemented this. Has it worked? Is there any data that shows that this is working? And I'm also, look, I'm all for Maryland being first on stuff. I'm tired of us being the 47th state to do stuff. It's cool to be first. So would love to know what the data is on that.
So we would be, and first of all, Dara, who's here, wrote a wonderful legal analysis and did a summary of what other states are doing. So please, and that should be in your in the testimony. So please review it. So not on this specifically. New York is the only state she was able to find that is trying and has a bill similar to this. But there are many other verification requirements that states have passed that we believe are similar and that are described in that memo.
See no further questions. Thank you, Delegate Embry and your panel. We have one more favorable, Catherine Davis.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Catherine Davis. I'm the director of the Courtroom Advocacy Project of Pro Bono Resource Center, where we represent low-income tenants in Baltimore City and Baltimore County in eviction proceedings. We're in favor of this bill because we, too, as you heard, have witnessed an increasing number of people seeking help after being victims of rental scams. We take these cases in court, but they're very hard because, legally speaking, there's not a whole lot we can do. The reality is that often these people have no right to be in the property, so the best we can do is damage control. We try to negotiate settlements with the owners that allow our clients time to find alternate housing and avoid the trauma of eviction. So in our view, HB 1456 is low-hanging fruit when it comes to trying to address this problem of scammers and squatters. And because it recognizes that there are two victims, as you just heard. And so it shifts the burden from either the tenants or the owners to the actual scammers. And I'd like to just quickly share a story, which is also my written testimony, of one of our clients who would have benefited from this bill. She's a single mother of 4 and a medical tech who found a home last summer on Facebook Marketplace that she was in a good school district and was good for her family of 5. She paid a large security deposit and met the alleged owner at the home to get the keys and sign the lease before moving in. She then moved in and then used the lease and her utility bills to register her children in the local school and paid rent monthly for 6 months before the owner, who lived actually just across the street, this was in a rural area of Baltimore County, realized that there was a family living in his house. As soon as he realized, he filed a wrongful detainer action. The hearing was set within 8 days. This was in February of this year. Luckily, she made time to come to court and find us, where we were able to negotiate a settlement where she will need to be out by April 1st. She's currently looking for alternate housing. So she could have theoretically found out that she was being scammed, but she shouldn't have to. And we think this bill will prevent her from going through that. Thank you very much.
Seeing no questions for you, we will now move on to the unfavorables. We have Lisa May.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Lisa May with Maryland Realtors, here in very reluctant opposition to this bill. We have been strong supporters of legislative initiatives to combat squatting and real estate fraud, but we have had conversations with the sponsor on how the bill as drafted would have negative impacts on properties that are listed through real estate brokerages. And these are things that we would not expect anyone outside the industry to know or to pick up on. So when a property is listed with a real estate broker, that broker enters it into the multiple listing service. And from the multiple listing service, there is something called an IDX feed that is created. And that IDX feed is an online presence for all properties that are listed within the state of Maryland, so that each brokerage can show not just their listings, but the listing of other brokerages all throughout the state. From there, it also goes to third-party sites, your Zillows, your Realtor.com, your Homes.com, and then it even goes to sites like Nextdoor or news sites. And you can kind of see that if the owner verification has to happen at each of these points and verify and cross-verify, you can see that that gets out of hand kind of quickly, and ultimately the concern is you're going to have sites that say, never mind, I don't want to have property listings on them, which can hurt bona fide buyers and sellers and prevent them from finding each other. So since we spoke with the sponsor last Thursday, we've been in internal discussions with our legal team to see if we can offer some language to narrow and clarify when these verifications need to take place and on what platforms. So we offer that for your consideration, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Delegate Weigel.
Chair. So if I want to list my property with a real estate broker for rent, what do you all do now to verify the legitimacy that I actually own that property?
Sure. We have some best practices that are out there. Some of it kind of depends on the circumstances of the sale. If you have lived...
Not a sale, a rent.
Or rent, either one. Both of them kind of are the same way. If you have lived next door to someone for 20 years and they want to rent out their property, probably you just have them show you the deed, and that would be enough. But for instance, if you're handling an estate and you're an out-of-state personal representative, they may require you to get some notarized documents to show your driver's license, to hop on a Zoom call where they can physically see you, because forged documents and even deepfakes in AI are starting to infiltrate real estate. So it is a little bit situation specific on what things would show adequate proof of ownership or the ability to control that property's listing.
So you do verify that now. So with the So if it were just confined to the initial listing agent, you'd be okay with that?
I think that is certainly one of the ideas that we are exploring, the initial creation of the advertisement, whether that is directly to a Craigslist or whether that is into the MLS. That is one of the ways that we have talked about narrowing the scope of this bill, yes.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much. Seeing no further witnesses, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1456. We'll now move on to House Bill 1179. Delegate Congolo.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I think this is actually my first time testifying or having a hearing here, so excited to see you all. Thank you for the opportunity to present House Bill 1179, the Application Store Accountability Act. For the record, I'm Delegate Latoya Congolo, representing District 31. As a mother and mental health therapist, I'm seeing more and more that our children are going to phones or tablets for entertainment, communication, and even homework. But with just a few clicks, a child can download an app, agree to pages of legal terms, and begin sharing personal data, often without a parent even knowing it happened. This is the problem this bill seeks to address. House Bill 1179 introduces a simple and common sense principle. When a child downloads an app, a parent should be a part of that decision. Right now, companies are able to form digital contracts with children, and in nearly every other area of life, businesses cannot enter into contracts with minors without parental involvement. This bill simply brings that same expectation to the digital marketplace. House Bill 1179 places responsibility where it makes the most sense, at the App Store level. App stores are the gatekeepers, and they already manage accounts, process payments, and control how apps are distributed. This bill asks them to use the systems they already have in place to determine whether an account belongs to a minor and to link that account to a verified parent. Importantly, this bill does not ban minors from using apps. With a parent's consent, children can still download and use any application they choose. What the bill ensures is that parents are involved before companies enter into digital agreements with their children. Some opponents have raised concerns about privacy and age verification, but the reality is that app stores already estimate or determine the age of their users today using existing account information. House Bill 1179 does not require new categories of personal data to be collected. Instead, it places reasonable guardrails around practices that are already happening and creates accountability for that information, how that information is used. States across the country are already beginning to recognize the importance of this approach. Utah has already enacted its App Store Accountability Act, and California has advanced similar legislation placing responsibility on app stores to involve parents when minors access digital platforms. This is a growing bipartisan agreement that these platforms must play a role in protecting children online. Opponents sometimes say parental control are enough. Parents are trying their best, but the system was not designed with them in mind. House Bill 1179 simplifies the process of placing responsibility at the entry point of the digital marketplace, where parents can approve or deny downloads before they happen. Finally, the bill also protects developers. App developers are shielded from liability when they rely in good faith on the age classification and parental consent provided by the App Store. For these reasons, I respectfully request a favorable report for House Bill 1179. Thank you.
Madam Chair and honorable members of the committee, my name is Jared Hayden. I'm a policy analyst at the Institute for Family Studies, which aims to advance the welfare of families through research, public education, and policy. Despite the fact that a majority of parents monitor their children's device usage and use parental controls, most remain worried for their children's online safety. We think this bill offers Maryland families a bipartisan, constitutional, and technically feasible solution to strengthen protections for children online. The bill is incredibly simple. It codifies a longstanding cornerstone of contract law, namely that corporations do not have a right to contract with minors without their parents' consent. Yet tech companies have not been held to this standard. Tech companies, emboldened by a lack of liability and regulation, have long offered parental controls, but only to placate parents with an illusion of empowerment. Meanwhile, companies like Google are notifying minors on their 13th birthday that they can delink their account from their parents. But an app is not a children's book or a video game. It's not mere content or information. Every app requires that a user consent to its terms of service and privacy policy. These complex contracts include great risks to minors, as they give sweeping access to personal data and expose minors to serious risks. Indeed, just last summer, a 40-year-old Maryland man was sentenced to 14 years in prison for coercing a 15-year-old girl to send him intimate images. He found his victim on Snapchat, an app rated for those 13 and older on Apple's App Store. Other companies like Character AI have also enforced these contracts against minors, as in the case of a Texas boy who, after maiming himself at the chatbot's behest, was only entitled to $100 in damages, as outlined in the terms of service. Despite what opponents may say, this bill is agnostic about content and thus does not encroach upon First Amendment rights. It does not make any determination about whether Snapchat or Roblox is good or bad for minors, nor does it prohibit anyone from accessing any app. With their parents' help, minors are free to access whatever apps they want. What this bill is not agnostic about is big tech's practice of contracting with minors. If passed, app stores and app developers would finally be held to the same standard as any business in any other industry. We strongly urge this committee to advance this bill and make Maryland safer for kids online. Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Sarah Thacker. I am a lifelong resident of Southern Maryland and a legislative analyst for the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. I urge you to support HB 1179, a solution to protect children from exposure to harmful content online. As our world has become increasingly digital, the dangers facing children have followed. Nearly 95% of teenagers have access to a cell phone, and predators are well aware of this. These devices and the apps on them are designed to be addictive and maintain young users' attention. As a substitute teacher and math coach, I have walked into classrooms at every level in Maryland where students are at their desk on a laptop for hours. Just last Friday, I spoke with a class of 27 fifth graders where every single student had at least 2 devices in their possession. Whistleblower testimony and internal documents have revealed that tech platforms consistently prioritize profit over child safety and cannot be trusted to self-regulate. Use of these platforms expose children to an array of harms, including addiction, self-harm, eating disorders, sex trafficking, suicide, and more. Unfortunately, these harms are ever present in Maryland. In that same 5th grade class, at least half reported they had experienced a dangerous interaction on their device, and teachers report that parents consistently reach out to them regarding concerning online interactions. Researcher shows that approximately 90% of digital activity occurs within apps, making app stores the primary gatekeepers, yet they bear little responsibility. Descriptions of apps are inaccurate, designed to mislead, and age ratings are assigned by developers seeking to sell the products regardless of rating accuracy. For example, the apps Instagram and Snapchat are rated 12 and 13 respectively, yet consistently appear on BARC's list of dangerous apps. These age assignments should not be in the hands of those selling the products, but should be verified by external experts. The App Store Accountability Act places responsibility where it belongs on the App Store. This approach mirrors other industries where retailers are responsible for verifying a consumer's age before selling dangerous products. I'll finish with this. The bill prevents corporations from entering into contracts with children without parental consent. Every day, app stores facilitate contracts between minors and billion-dollar companies, giving access to child's personal data like exact location, camera, microphone, and more. Maryland has the opportunity to protect children, empower parents, and hold powerful corporations accountable. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. We'll start with Delegate Pippi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate, good to see you. I feel that my role as a citizen legislator is important. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it means that we're part-time legislators. We also have real lives and families outside of this. So I have 2 kids, a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, and every day is a battle with the technology, every day. The tablets, the switches, they don't have phones, but they steal our phones, and they play on them, and they know how to use them more than we do. One of my kids figured out that it was the eye scan to get in, so he would hold the phone in front of my face while I was sleeping to get access to my phone. Anyways, I bring all that up because this is a real challenge. And, and the kids are exposed to some pretty horrific things. And there are actually people out there that prey on children. And they do it through games that have these ability where you have live people on the other end and you're playing different games, Roblox, different things like that. So a couple questions. First question is, will this expose people to privacy risks? If you could answer that issue, and briefly, because I got a few questions. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of privacy risk, I think one of the things that we should understand is that this bill is actually a win for privacy. Currently, these companies can collect all this data and they're not held accountable for what they do with it. So by having strict requirements around age verification, again, as the delegate mentioned, all of the technology that's being required to collect that data is already being used, and it's information that's already being collected. This law, if passed, actually spells out what can and can't be done with that information.
Okay, so piggybacking on that question and your answer, will this be burdensome for tech companies to kind of implement a age verification?
Yeah, so again, this is something that's already being used. The technology is already being used by app stores in particular. And so again, this is not a heavy lift for them. They're already implementing this in states. I mean, even before the bill came out, I think passed in Utah, Apple and Google were like, oh, we actually can do this, something like this. They announced that they had these tools. So it wasn't ever a matter of technological feasibility. It was always a matter of priority. And last note on that is that the Supreme Court has acknowledged that this technology is not burdensome, either age verification technology generally.
Okay, so does that address the issue in Texas? Is there like a constitutional challenge to this?
There is. One of the things that's great about the bill that is being considered here in Maryland is that some of the concerns and parts of the bill that were challenged in Texas have been updated to avoid those challenges here. I'm happy to speak more to those. If that
And last question is, I would imagine tech companies, they're getting better. They're trying to figure out a way to kind of appease parents and understanding that this is a big problem, and so they're implementing certain things. Why is this bill necessary if the tech companies are trying to adapt and evolve to address these concerns?
Yeah, so this is ultimately a matter about liability and responsibility, and there is no responsibility without liability. If it's just left up to the tech companies, they can determine what they do, how much they do, and all that they're really exposed to is public pressure, which can be effective and has been effective. But what we see time and again is that really the rubber doesn't quite meet the road unless there are legal requirements for these companies to protect kids. And at the federal level, for example, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, it's after 13 that kids are recognized as like digital adults. And even then, the liability requirements for how these companies collect data and how they protect kids, they have to actually know that the user is a minor, which means that they have to actually be holding a birth certificate in their possession. There are ways to age verify that don't require that. So really this is about creating liability for these companies to protect minors. And we find that that's effective to actually getting these companies to do the things they need to do.
Okay. Well, I just want to say is I appreciate you bringing the bill because it's an important issue, and it's like an ongoing battle. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I see no further questions. Thank you, Delegate, and your panel. I'll now call on the unfavorables. David McGarry, Brianna January, Robert Melvin, Morgan Stevens, and Megan Stokes.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much for having me here today. I think it bears a little bit of review about how the policies in this bill would actually work. To quote from the bill itself, it says, at the time an individual creates an account, an application provider shall conduct age verification. What this means in practice is that any data that may later be accumulated by technology platforms to establish age will not be present, again, at the time of account creation. If you are just signing up for something, the technology platform has no idea who you are, and they have not had any chance to review your online habits. Given the commercially available technologies for age verification that are widely in use now, passing an age verification mandate will result in the use of facial scans or ID scans. That is quite a lot of data, and if you refer to my written testimony, I document many of the ways in which data collected becomes exposed to hackers and cyber criminals, or simply to the open internet. Secondly, I would like to say something about the legal standard. The Texas bill, it was not in fact enjoined on the grounds of the carve-outs that were mentioned by an earlier witness. The Texas bill, the judge had a somewhat complex opinion, but he made clear that one of the fundamental problems with the App Store proposal per se is that it sweeps a incredibly wide amount of fully protected speech. It sweeps all of that into a single mandate, and it imposes a significant constitutional burden on that speech. This means that an App Store bill would precondition access to, say, a Bible app, or to Khan Academy, or to YouTube Kids on the user supplying his or her data to the tech company. And with that, I see I'm out of time, so I will be very happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Could you state your name, please?
My name is David McGarry. I'm the Research Director of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today regarding House Bill 1179. My name is Morgan Stevens, and I represent ACT, the App Association, a global trade association for small and medium-sized tech companies and independent app developers that drive innovation, job creation, and economic growth across the country, including in the state of Maryland. ACT and our members share your commitment to protecting children online and empowering parents with meaningful tools to manage their children's digital experiences. We support policies that genuinely improve online safety without unintentionally undermining privacy or innovation. However, this bill, as currently drafted, raises serious concerns, particularly for small app developers that do not build products or services specifically designed for or marketed to children. This includes everything from a calculator app to a local pizza place app. First, the bill establishes broad compliance obligations that are extremely difficult to implement in practice. The bill requires age verification, ongoing parental consent, and reporting app functionality changes. For small developers, building and maintaining these systems to comply with these requirements is costly, complex, and often unrealistic. Second, the bill would likely increase privacy and security risks. While well-intended, the bill pushes companies to collect and store additional sensitive information to verify ages and links parents to children, which is data they otherwise would not need. Finally, the bill raises legal and constitutional concerns. Conditioning minors' access to lawful digital content on age verification and parental consent restricts protected speech for minors and adults alike. As has been mentioned, late last year, a federal court blocked enforcement of a similar law, finding that likely violated the First Amendment. We share your goal of protecting children online, and ACT stands ready to work with Maryland lawmakers on solutions that are effective, privacy protective, and workable for the innovators serving Maryland families. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I welcome any questions.
Madam Chair, esteemed committee, Brianna January with Chamber of Progress in respectful opposition to HB 1179. I won't repeat the concerns that my colleagues have shared, which are also outlined in our written testimony, but I will say that the approach of this bill is the digital equivalent of every single shopping mall and every single shopping center in Maryland, requiring every single patron at the very point of entry stepping into the building, not even individual stores, having to either show a government ID or undergo biometric screening and collection of data in order to just enter the shopping mall. Regardless of the intent of the patron on which stores they plan to go to, whether they be a shoe store, a toy store, a pet store, or a store that sells alcohol or adult content. That is the digital equivalent of this model, and it's for that reason a lot of states around the country this year alone have rejected the model, including Virginia just a few weeks ago. I'll simply add that Maryland passed one of the most comprehensive children's online data privacy bills just a few years ago. Let's give that time to actually be implemented and to work before we add on to those regulations. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Robert Melvin. I'm the Northeast Regional Director at the R Street Institute. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan public policy research organization that promotes free markets and limited effective government. We want to share our opposition to House Bill 1179. In our written testimony, we outline a lot of the same concerns that have been shared by my colleagues on the panel. One of the issues, though, that I would like to specifically mention is that House Bill 1179 would be easy to bypass. Once a user gains access to a device, they could access apps or the broader internet with minimal restrictions, including if they have a laptop or desktop. And so in practice, this bill creates the illusion of protection while doing little to meaningfully limit access and raises significant constitutional privacy and security concerns. For those reasons alone, we ask an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Valderrama and members of the committee. My name is Megan Stokes. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm the State Policy Director at the Computer and Communications Industry Association, or CCIA. We are an international not-for-profit trade association representing a broad cross-section of communication and technology companies. We fully support the committee's goal of protecting children online. However, CCIA must respectfully oppose House Bill 1179 because it raises serious constitutional privacy and practical concerns, many of which were already discussed. I don't necessarily want to belabor the points, but courts have repeatedly struck down similar laws that require age verification to access lawful digital content. The First Amendment does not allow states to condition access to protected speech on proving one's age. The age verification requirements in the bill are very interesting. It's going to require that the Attorney General help create the rules. Well, this measure goes into effect October 1st. So there's a strong concern that these rules will not have been created and accepted by the time this bill goes into effect. That leaves some real concerns around what compliance would actually look like. If it's a concern about contracts, Maryland has existing law around contracts, including when a minor can enter a contract and when they can disaffirm a contract. Also, I'm a mother of two. I have a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old. I am living this life as well, Delegate, and it is a tough one, right? But it is one of those where I think it's so important for the parents to have the main sort of voice here and the discussion with the kids. This is a kitchen table issue, and I want to make decisions for how they approach technology without having to provide information to other groups or explain why I'm doing something or why I'm approving it. So for many reasons, I just want to respectfully urge the committee to reject House Bill 1179. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, thank you very much for your testimony this afternoon. We have a virtual. No, she didn't show up. Margaret Durkin from TechNet is not here. And seeing no further witnesses, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1179. We'll now move on to House Bill 1008. Delegate Spiegel, are you here to present?
Madam Chair, may I bring up my panel? I have Jane Dean, Lona Muckle, Sarah Westrick, Robert Enton, and then we have a couple of folks from the Credit Union Association. I guess they'll, if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, they'll be the second round.
I guess you're presenting on behalf of you and Delegate Queen, who sits on this committee. I am. Okay.
Okay. Well, good afternoon again, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Delegate Ryan Spiegel for House Bill 1008, the Vulnerable Adult Banking Protection Act. And as you noted, Madam Chair, I'm sharing primary sponsorship of this bill with Delegate Queen, and I just want to say I appreciate all her work and efforts on this subject. This bill strengthens protections for seniors and vulnerable adults who are increasingly targeted by financial exploitation. Financial exploitation of seniors and vulnerable adults is one of the fastest growing forms of abuse in our country. And according to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or FinCEN, approximately 1 in 10 older adults experiences some form of financial abuse, yet only 1 in 44 cases is ever reported. Annual losses exceed $2.9 billion nationwide, and nearly 90% of perpetrators are actually family members or other trusted individuals. At the same time, the rise of AI-driven fraud and increasingly sophisticated online scams has made these crimes even more difficult to detect and prevent. In Maryland alone, more than 1,000 cases of financial exploitation involving seniors are reported every year, and the true number is likely much higher. So HB 1008 takes a proactive and prevention-focused approach. It authorizes fiduciary institutions to temporarily delay or deny suspicious disbursements when financial exploitation is suspected. It allows these institutions to coordinate with law enforcement and appropriate agencies when concerns arise. Financial institutions are often the first line of defense when unusual account activity occurs. Bank employees can notice sudden large withdrawals or transfers that are inconsistent with a customer's typical behavior or transactions initiated under suspicious circumstances. But without clear statutory authority, these institutions may be limited in their ability to intervene. So this bill provides that authority. It allows fiduciary institutions to pause transactions when credible concerns arise and creates a brief window to review the situation and notify appropriate authorities if exploitation is suspected. This small but critical step can prevent life-altering financial losses for seniors and vulnerable adults without significant disruption to the normal flow of funds in financial transactions. Now, importantly, this bill focuses on prevention. Once funds are transferred or withdrawn as part of a scam, they're often impossible to recover. So by allowing institutions to act when red flags appear, this bill helps stop exploitation before the damage is done. This legislation also supports coordination between the institutions and law enforcement and protective services agencies, ensuring that suspected cases can be addressed quickly and appropriately while protecting the interests of vulnerable account holders. Financial exploitation can devastate seniors who have spent a lifetime building their financial security. HB 1008 equips those institutions with clear tools to help protect individuals when warning signs appear. Without that legal authority to act in this fashion, institutions are not able to take these important steps to protect account holders, even when they might already have the technological capability to do so. And so we respectfully request a favorable report on HB 1008. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Robert Etten on behalf of the Maryland Bankers Association. I want to, on behalf of the association and Maryland's banking industry, I want to express our strong thanks for these sponsors in putting this bill in. We worked on this bill with the interim. There's a pending cross file. It's going to be heard this week. And it's so important. I can't tell you how many times I've been notified by members of the General Assembly, because I've represented the Bankers Association forever, about a constituent that's had the kind of problem which this bill addresses. And the hard part for the bank is, what do? You have a customer that says, I want to transfer this money to, this person. And yet you're suspicious. You think maybe there's fraud involved, but your customer is telling you, you got to do this. And once it gets done, as the sponsor indicated, it's really, really hard to roll it back. So what this bill does is it puts a system in place where if the bank thinks there's suspicious activity, Maryland law will authorize them to investigate it with guardrails, a period of time, standards, who you report to, but to investigate it. And hopefully we think this will be a very large step in the right direction to address this kind of activity. This bill has been in effect for many years for the securities industry, and it's modeled after what's worked for the securities industry, and we're now applying it to the banking industry. We are in strong support of the bill. Once again, we want to thank the sponsors, and we hope that you'll pass it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sarah Westrick. I'm the Advocacy Director for AARP Maryland, representing more than 850,000 Marylanders age 50 and over. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in strong support of HB 1008, the Vulnerable Adult Banking Protection Act, and thank you to Delegates Spiegel and Queen for sponsoring this very important legislation. In a few moments, you're going to hear from AARP Fraud Network's brave survivors who are joining us today. Their willingness to share deeply personal and often painful experiences an act of true courage, and their voices are exactly why this legislation matters. They are turning harm into advocacy, and we are grateful. HB 1008 addresses one of the fastest growing and most devastating forms of elder abuse, financial exploitation. Once money leaves an account, it is almost never recovered. The only effective intervention is stopping suspicious transactions before funds disappear, often overseas and often within minutes. This bill gives financial institutions a proven and balanced tool used in 26 other states, the ability to temporarily delay or deny a suspicious disbursement when exploitation is reasonably suspected. The hold is short with a limited extension only when APS, law enforcement, state's attorney, or the court requests it. Funds are released immediately if the institution determines no exploitation has occurred. This approach works. It stops theft at the point of transaction. It clarifies expectations for financial institutions. It protects customer privacy, and it also increases public trust. HB 1008 gives Maryland banks and credit unions the tools they need to shield older adults and vulnerable consumers without restricting legitimate transactions. For all of these reasons, AARP Maryland respectfully urges a favorable report.
Good afternoon. My name is Judith Boivin. I'm from Montgomery County. And I'm a victim of a scam. I received a call at the end of September 23, and it came from the Rockville Police Department. The caller claimed I was under investigation for fraud and money laundering, and then transferred me to someone posing to be the FBI cybersecurity director. He knew personal details about my life and convinced me that criminals were using my identity. He told me I needed to cooperate in a covert operation to prove my innocence. He called morning and night, insisting on secrecy, and pressured me to liquidate all my financial accounts. Over several weeks, I withdrew my entire retirement savings, a total of almost $600,000. When the calls stopped in December, the criminals were gone. A real FBI agent later confirmed the official I'd been speaking with was an imposter. My case remains under investigation. The financial loss has been catastrophic, especially as my husband has Parkinson's, and we now face tax penalties from those forced withdrawals. I share my story because scams today are sophisticated. Criminals use fear, urgency, and emotional manipulation to exploit vulnerable people. HB 1008 is essential because it empowers financial institutions to step in when they see red flags. Had these precautions existed in 2023, my bank might have questioned the withdrawals or even prevented them. These safeguards can stop tragedy before it happens. I respectfully urge a favorable report on HB 1008. Thank you for your time and your commitment to protecting vulnerable adults.
Good afternoon, Chair Valderrama, Vice Chair Charkoudian, and members of the Economic Matters Committee. My name is Jane Dean, a resident of Silver Spring and an AARP Fraud Watch Network volunteer. I received a call supposedly from Amazon, which my caller ID confirmed, and was told someone was trying to use my personal and bank information to buy a Mac laptop. I denied I was doing this and was transferred to several different people, each person sounding more official than the last, until I was speaking with the actual scammer. He told me someone in Mexico was using my personal information to set up an account to launder $300,000 of dark money. And he told me I needed to withdraw my clean money over 3 days from 3 different bank branches, and specific instructions were given on how to send the cash to attorneys in California so my money could be protected in government security accounts while they tried to catch the bad guys. The scammer was very sophisticated and took advantage of my panic. At that point, I was under the ether. It was when I was at the 3rd branch of the bank that the bank manager grew suspicious and asked me what was going on. And I told him, and he said that I was being scammed, which brought me out from under the ether. By that time, the criminals had stolen $25,600 from me. Imagine the fear and confusion I felt during those days. But I'm here today to tell you that House Bill 1008 will protect people like me. It will give financial institutions the tools they need to interfere at the first sign of suspicious transactions. Perhaps if the first branch I went to had questioned me further, I would have come out from under the ether sooner and not had the money stolen from me. Please give House Bill 1008 a favorable report and help the legislation move forward. I don't want anyone else to go through what I went through. Thank you.
Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, my name is Lona Muckle, and I'm the Senior Policy Associate with the Cash Campaign of Maryland. CASH stands for Creating Assets, Savings, and Hope, and we promote the economic advancement for low to moderate income individuals and families in Baltimore and across Maryland. We see how devastating financial abuse can be for older adults and vulnerable individuals. A large percentage of our tax preparation clients are older adults, and we know that their financial security can be extremely delicate. Many rely on fixed incomes and have little savings to absorb unexpected losses. For many older adults, even a single fraudulent transaction can create immediate hardship. This bill introduces an important and early safeguard, and this is important because it creates an opportunity to intervene before funds are permanently lost. CASH also staffs the Financial Education and Capability Commission, which is co-chaired by Delegate Stein and Senator Brooks. One of the commission's goals is to make recommendations to the General Assembly on different initiatives to improve the education and capability of Marylanders. In past reports, commission members voted to support legislation increasing protections for older adults who have been victimized by financial abuse. Ultimately, protecting older adults from financial exploitation helps ensure that they can remain housed, maintain access to essential services, and continue to meet basic needs. For these reasons, we urge a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Delegate Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for bringing this bill, this important bill. My question is for Mr. Enton. Can you tell me how the institution would be flagged, like how it would flag the suspicious activity?
You know, just based on, that's a good question, and I think that, you know, the good news is that this is what most bank employees deal with all the time. They're dealing with their customers. They're dealing with the fact that, you know, there's a request for payment. Maybe they got a call. But, you know, I think for me, I would say that, and I would hope for the rest of you, that when someone calls you or you get a text message about your financial assets, what I do is, you know, particularly if it's an email or text, is where I hang up and I call whoever it is they say that they are. If it's Amazon, if it's my bank, whoever it is, where I look up their toll-free number. Like I got a call the other day from a credit card company. I have 3 credit cards, and before I even responded at all, I went online to see if that toll-free number was in fact the toll-free number for my credit card company. So my point is this. My point is that bankers are in a better position than most people to know what's suspicious and what's not. They deal with it all the time. The great thing about this piece of legislation, I think, is it says to the bank, okay, you can now deal with this. You have, under the statute, you have certain protections. You can investigate it. You can hold up. You can say, we're not going to process this check. We're not going to process this payment, and look into it and investigate it, and they will. Our industry was approached about this legislation during the fall, and we grabbed a hold of it with both hands to work on the wording of it with the sponsors and with the Senate sponsor, and we're 1,000% behind it. We think it will make a difference. I'd be happy to put you in touch with someone at one of the banks who specifically, is involved with these programs to give you more detailed information.
So they can program their system to flag certain activity that might be suspicious to them, correct?
Once again, I'll have to find out the answer.
Okay.
I'm only looking at it from my own personal experience, but I think if like I'm with one of the large banks that does business all over the country.
Yeah.
And you can go on their website and they'll give you all kinds of information about how to deal with suspicious fraud.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep. Seeing no further questions, thank you all for your testimony.
Thank you.
Ms. Bovin, Ms. Dean, thank you for sharing your story with us and the efforts in trying to move this legislation forward.
Thank you so much.
We have more favorable witnesses. Rory Murray. John Bratzakis. Oh, it's just Rory, right? Because John's not here, right?
That's nice. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, for the final time today, I'm Rory Murray here on behalf of the Maryland D.C. Credit Union Association. For all the reasons stated by the prior panel, we're very much in support of this question. To Delegate Roberts' question, typically there's a staff training component, so the frontline staff are aware of what they're looking for, but there's also a lot of automated monitoring software and data analytics tracking software on the back end that can flag certain transactions that wouldn't be flagged under suspicious activity rules from the federal government. But once one of those comes through and they think it might be potential elder exploitation or fraud of any sort, they can call a trusted contact, which would be Adult Protective Services, local police, if they have a power of attorney or somebody else as a signer on their account. But there's a lot of different routes that go into play at the same time. Thank you.
Seeing no questions, thank you very much. Seeing no further questions or witnesses, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1008. Colleagues, we're going to skip to Delegate Ampre's House Bill 1346, and then we'll go back in the order that the agenda has. And thank you for your indulgence, Delegate Hornberger. Thank you for your patience.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, Delegate Marlon Ampre here in support of House Bill 1346, expedited document processing fees. This is essentially the bill that we brought last year, so I'm going to be really brief in my description and allow my expert witness here to testify on some of the nuances of the bill and what we're trying to accomplish. House Bill 1346 changes how the State Department of Assessments and Taxation processes time-sensitive business filings by creating clear, expedited processing options with defined timelines. So today, businesses, nonprofits, and legal professionals often face delays that can prevent them from opening or expanding a business, securing financing, executing contracts, remaining in good standing with the state, and Because of this, what you will find is that sometimes people will actually choose to incorporate or do business in other states because they can do things faster and more efficiently. So literally, you have people who are based in Maryland, want to do business here or doing business here, but they will incorporate in another state because their systems are faster, and therefore we're losing some fees, we're losing revenue as a state because people are filing in other places. So what this bill does is it does what other states who are nearby are already doing, which is that the bill establishes optional expedited processing tiers, including 2-hour processing, 1-hour processing, 30-minute processing when documents are submitted before the department's close of business. So what this will allow is if when a company or business is trying to update something or they're trying to process the transaction, I've worked on many of transactions where we have a whole lot of moving parts for subsidiaries or acquiring something or changing something, or there's a merger and we have to do things to try and keep it in layman terms when we have to reorg, et cetera. There's a lot of processing that happens, and the faster it happens, the better it is often for companies, especially when they have financing tied to the time when a deal must be done. So we want to make sure that we are remaining competitive here in Maryland. So all this bill does is it creates an expedited processing tiers that we would allow, and companies will be able to pay extra for those tiers. So I want to be clear, this is not a general raising of fees of any type. It just creates a new categories where if you want to do something a little faster, you can pay a little extra, which all other states do. Again, there's no fee hike in what you already do right now. It just allows you to pay a little extra for things to move a little faster. Just to be clear, there's no fee hike for anything. So with that said, I'll ask for a favorable report on House Bill 1346. There is an amendment that is forthcoming that we have that will just change the timing of when the bill will take place. But I will turn it over to Trey Hilberg from the MSBA to provide more commentary and answer any technical questions you all may have.
Thank you, Delegate, and thank you to the Chair and the committee for consideration of this bill. I'm here on behalf of the Business Law section of the MSBA, and we're certainly in support of the bill. I'll defer to my written testimony for most of our views on the importance of the bill, but I want to highlight and thank Director Yeager and SSTAT for their coordination and support of this bill. They are in support of this bill, and we've been in extended conversations with them, which led to a lot of the amendments that the delegate just mentioned. And the focus there has been on ensuring that SSTAT's able to implement this bill in a way that doesn't sacrifice any of the services they're currently providing to business communities, and doesn't come at the opportunity cost for other folks who might not be able to pay for this service. And the idea is this service is designed for very particular types of filings where there's a particular need because of the opening of the stock market or a multi-jurisdictional element to a transaction that requires staggering, and so more specific kind of time certainty. And so this gives an option to the business community that essentially wants to pay this extra fee for a very specific purpose without sacrificing the existing expedited options that are in Maryland and all of the existing filing options that are available to Maryland businesses. And so I think this is a unique scenario where both SSTAT and the business community are saying this is a great idea and this is something we can do. And it allows us to stay competitive with states like Delaware, Pennsylvania, and other neighboring states that are already offering this. So with that, I'll leave time for questions.
Okay. Are there any questions for this panel? Seeing none. We have one more favorable witness, Fatima Waheed.
I didn't know he was testifying.
Oh, wait, but that's not the right name. But
That's
no,
the other gentleman.
that's you. Yes, okay.
A Me Too goes a long way, my brother. A Me Too goes a long way.
Just that I've been mentioning how transformative economic efficiency is impacted by all these methods that accelerate delivery of results or searches. And I just wanted to point out that through the surveys we have found increase facilitates the regular processes as well, and the cost that you start off with goes down as the system is utilized because there is the system works on expediting all processes. So there is a positive impact that we have determined in the industry. When the first standards are more restrictive, there is a cost structure, there's a cost impact, but later on these costs go down because the technology takes over and can provide the regular services also much faster. That was one component of it. And whenever there is this focus on delivering results faster, it affects other industries as well. You can cite this as an example of how document retention, extraction, transformation, and delivery can be expedited and actually determine the real cost of doing it. So there's a great opportunity. We like to support all such initiatives because there are many things in the government that take much longer. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Seeing no questions, that concludes the hearing on House Bill 1346. And now we're going back to House Bill 1429. Delegate Hornberger, and feel free to bring up your panel.
Yeah, let the panel come on up. Go ahead and get started. I know it's getting late in the afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Delegate Kevin Hornberger here on HB 1429. And this is a combined right to repair bill, consumer protection, motor vehicles, and farm equipment. Now, this is a perennial issue. As many of you know, I've brought this bill for a number of years. And just to put it in sort of summary, what right to repair is, it gives the consumer and independent shops the ability to fix their devices, and it requires manufacturers to provide parts, tools, software, and diagnostics for those things that they buy. So the whole concept here is if you purchase something, you own it, and you have the ability, if you so choose, to repair it yourself or to take it to an independent shop. Now, why is this bill so controversial? Well, because this is a nationwide issue. This is playing out now in many states, and where we actually adopted this language from is very similar to Massachusetts. Massachusetts is the leader on this issue. Not only have they passed right to repair for automotive and the like, they've taken it to court. It's gone to their Supreme Court. They've been sued numerous times, multiple ballot initiatives. It's passed, it's held up, and it's been effective. And then they've even expanded it to include telematics, which are outlined in the bill. So this is very close to something that's already being done in another state and has so for a number of years. Now, over the last 10 years, even more states are adopting these right to repair initiatives. States like just recently this year, California, Oregon, Connecticut, we've got a few here listed. But this is not something novel, and this is not something unique. I want to thank the committee for last year passing a right to repair bill that I did with Delegate Kaufman that dealt with wheelchairs. Same idea, a mechanical device where parts were not being offered, folks were being burdened and stuck with these wheelchairs that no longer worked, no technicians available, and as a result, they had to take it into their own hands and repair it themselves. Now, the reason that this bill is so important for vehicles and for farm equipment, and I'll touch on each individually, for automobiles, because of you all have seen the cost of a new automobile, we are now entering an era in America we've never seen before where folks are holding on to their vehicles longer because they can't afford to purchase a new vehicle. And what that means is these vehicles age is that they need more maintenance, okay? Maintenance is also costly, certainly less costly than buying a new vehicle and making the payments. But what consumers are finding is sometimes they can't get the diagnostics equipment or the factory certified technician to work on it. This bill allows them to go to an independent shop or possibly work on it themselves. For the farm equipment, it's a similar issue, but it's a little bit different. The farm equipment that's coming out now that is very high tech requires highly specified technicians to work on it. And the availability of these technicians, in some instances, farmers are waiting weeks, if not months, for a certified technician to show up to work on the device that's inoperable. And all the while, they're losing crops, they're losing money, and this piece of equipment that they've had to finance because it may cost millions of dollars is sitting there without being used. So you will see a great deal of testimony, both for and against the bill. Again, very highly controversial, but I will point your attention to the Farm Bureau letter of support. They've backed this bill up for a number of years, and I think this is just good consumer protection. So with that, love to take questions and let the panel speak.
Thank you. Other questions? You know? Okay. We'll move on to Kurt McCauley.
I'm here in support of the bill, HB 1429. Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Kurt McCauley. I represent service stations, convenience stores, and independent repair shops in the state of Maryland. And this bill is nothing more than a consumer bill. If you go to your Google and Google in comparison prices between dealerships and independent repair shops, Consumer Report says it's about 34% more expensive to take your car to a dealer to get it repaired. That might be close to right, don't know. There's other ones in there too, AAIA car, it's a lot of information on it. But dealers, independent repair shops right now cannot get all the information they need to repair the cars. That's one thing. Now, they'll tell you, yeah, they can get all the information, but there's still some things they can't get. We're not asking for anything for free. They pay for everything they get. The only thing they're saying is they want the same information that a dealer can get from the manufacturer and pay for it. The other issue is telematics. That's a system that's built into the car that sends information back to whoever the manufacturer or dealer says it goes to. And the person that purchased the car, paid for it, has no choice in that. Well, that person should be able to say where that information is going to. Now, they say it's a security problem, they can't do it, you know, all kinds of excuses, but the fact is, they want to sell you the car, make the money, and then make the money on repairs too. And that's fine if that's, you know, some customers will want to go back to dealer. But all in all, that's all the independent repairs want. It's a consumer bill, good for the consumer. It's good for our independent repair shops. Other thing it does that consumers have a choice of where they want to go. They can save money, save gas, keep the purchase in the neighborhood. It's just a good all-around bill. And I appreciate the delegate bringing it up. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a virtual Brian England. Nope. Okay. Mr. McCauley, I see no questions for you. Thank you for your testimony. We'll move on to the unfavorables. Joshua Fisher, Peter Kitzmiller, Alan Schaefer, Dustin Freeman, Nathan Riggins.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Josh Fisher. I'm with the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. We are the trade association that represents the heart of the American auto industry, the manufacturers, suppliers, and tech companies that produce nearly every light-duty vehicle sold in the U.S. I'm here today to request an unfavorable report on House Bill 1429, and it's not because automakers oppose right to repair, but we are one of the biggest supporters of right to repair. Unfortunately, House Bill 1429 is built on a fundamental misunderstanding of the modern repair marketplace. It proceeds under the premise that independent repair shops are being locked out of vehicle data. This premise is simply wrong, and here's the truth. Automakers already make available to independent repair businesses all the information needed to diagnose and repair a vehicle. Our members are the gold standard when it comes to providing consumers with a range of options to seek repairs. They can go to an authorized dealer, national chains, independent repair shops, or even do it yourself. This is the very definition of consumer choice and only possible because automakers make available all needed repair information. This commitment was codified in the 2013 Massachusetts Right to Repair law, which was followed just a year later by a 2014 MOU that applies the Massachusetts law nationwide. So we operate under one standard in all 50 states. And as vehicle technology is evolving, we recognize that. And in 2013, we partnered with 2 national associations that represent independent repairers, the folks who this bill is ostensibly for, to announce a new national repair agreement that ensures repair access to all information needed to complete a repair, including vehicle telematics data. It's important to note our agreement is backed by the very people this bill claims to help, thousands of real-world collision and mechanical repair professionals across all 50 states. You don't have to take my word for it. In its 2021 Nix to Fix report, the Federal Trade Commission analyzed consumer repair options across every sector of the economy, and they specifically highlighted the auto industry as the ideal model for other industries to follow. Given the current dynamics in the independent repair marketplace, we'd request an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Peter Kitzmiller. I'm the president of the Maryland Automobile Dealers Association. We represent 300 franchised new car and truck dealers and their 20,000 employees across the state of Maryland here today in opposition to House Bill 1429. I'm not going to repeat the previous comments. The national agreement works, and how I know it works, there's 2 data points I want to point out. Number one, over 70% of all vehicle repairs outside of the warranty period are done by independent repair shops and facilities, 70%. So consumers do have choice in the marketplace, and they, again, over 70% of the repairs are done by independent repair facilities, which couldn't happen if they didn't have the information to repair the vehicle. Secondly, every one of my members works on all types of vehicles. They don't just work on vehicles for which they hold a franchise. When one of my Toyota dealers has a customer come in with a Chevrolet and we work on it, we get the information we need to fix that vehicle in the same place that the independent repair shops do as well. So the information is available. It's available across the board. It includes now telematics. And so for that reason, I would ask for an unfavorable report.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Nathan Riggins, Director of Government Affairs. I'm here on behalf of the Associated Equipment Distributors, or AED, which represents nearly 100 equipment dealer locations across Maryland. And as a resident of Prince George's County, I am here to express my respectful opposition to House Bill 1429. AED is a trade association comprised of companies that sell, rent, and service equipment used in agriculture, construction, and other applications. At the outset, I want to make clear, AED members support customers' ability to repair their machinery and make available diagnostic tools, repair information, parts, and remote customer support. That's because idle, non-functioning equipment equals lost time and money. House Bill 1429 is a solution in search of a problem and will only destabilize an already well-functioning repair ecosystem in state. Most concerning, the bill's fair and reasonable terms mandate, requiring manufacturers to provide parts, tools, and documentation on the same terms offered to authorized dealers, would force manufacturers into direct competition with independent dealers. This will completely alter the equipment industry's distribution model. Equipment manufacturers rely on a network of independent, mostly family-owned, small to medium-sized companies to sell, rent, and service the equipment. These dealers make significant investments in their employees, and many AED member facilities are located in Maryland's rural and underserved areas, creating well-paying careers and economic opportunity. Equipment dealers invest extensive capital in parts inventories to ensure repairs and maintenance can occur as soon as possible. House Bill 1429 would effectively dismantle the equipment industry aftermarket parts business and create long delays in parts availability. For many equipment dealers, parts revenue produces the majority of income for the business. If parts are required to be provided at cost, many dealers would be put out of business. For these reasons, AED respectfully urges you to issue an unfavorable report on House Bill 1429.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thanks for the opportunity to speak here. My name is Dustin Freeman, Vice President of Product Support for James River Equipment Company. We've got 4 locations in the state of Maryland, just over 100 employees, and we serve agriculture customers, a lot of like what he just spoke about from an AED. We're also an AED member as well. A lot of the things that we do, we really support fair competition, reasonable access to repair services. We believe this bill goes a little bit beyond what is necessary and risks, distributing and disrupting the established service and distribution models that he spoke about. There is one piece there is a memorandum of understanding in which Maryland participates in. It's functioning as it's intended. From our perspective, we're not necessarily aware of any unresolved or widespread farmer grievances related to accessing repair information. When you look at the MOU, it's a nationwide consistent standard for producers and growers, simple, free, if they do have grievances. He mentioned a little bit on the language on page 13 around on parts language. The interesting thing is that 70% of our parts, and he used 70%, but even from the ag and construction side, 70% of our parts actually go to a customer that actually fixes their own tractor. So, for those reasons, we respectfully urge the committee to, push an unfavorable report as it's stated.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Alan Schaefer. I'm Executive Director of the Engine Technology Forum and a lifelong Maryland resident. The Engine Technology Forum is an educational organization representing manufacturers of advanced engines, equipment, components, petroleum, and renewable and biofuel producers. We've appeared before this committee on several previous iterations of this legislation and are here again to ask for your unfavorable report. While the concerns we have about the legislation opening up the possibility of deliberate tampering with emissions controls and making Maryland's air dirtier have not changed, what has changed is recent actions by EPA to address this very issue of which this legislation seeks to fix. One of the principal arguments of proponents seeking right to repair legislation is problems cited with the emissions control systems, particularly the selective catalytic reduction systems that utilize diesel exhaust fluid. Users report that these systems would fail at the worst time, causing delays in harvesting crops or inability to deliver their freight load until a technician was available to diagnose, repair, and reset the system. These are known as inducements. In the first development that makes this legislation not necessary is in August of 2025, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency announced new guidance for manufacturers to implement, and which they are implementing now across the vast population of existing machines, engines, and equipment. This will provide more flexibility for users to fix their machines and take longer time before ultimately they stop working until they're repaired. That's going from up to 8,400 miles of driving or 160 hours of operation before being shut down. Manufacturers are rolling these inducements out now. Secondly, EPA has just issued a clarification, very specific, that farmers indeed have a right to reset and or repair their emissions control systems without contracting dealers. And finally, EPA is further investigating this by requesting information from all manufacturers about the incidence of problems with the SCR systems and potential repairs. So for the reasons that I've stated, we have protections in place from US EPA, new right to repair guidance from EPA. We don't believe this legislation is needed, and we appreciate the opportunity to comment here today and request an unfavorable report.
Thank you for your testimony. I don't see any questions for you, gentlemen. Thank you for, Delegate Turner has a question.
Okay, what was your name and your company again? You said 70% that you
Yeah, so Dustin Freeman, James River Equipment Company. Dustin Freeman, James River Equipment Company.
Go slow, no, I can't write that fast. Yep. Dustin Freeman, okay.
James River Equipment Company.
Freeman Company, okay. I'm sorry, I couldn't see. Okay, thank you. So you stated that, okay, because this bill is a right to repair. Yep. You said that they repair what percentage?
So 70% of our part sales go across the counter to a customer. So they walk in, walk out with a part, and they fix their tractor or their asset on their own.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then all of the people on this panel here, y'all do something similar to him? What percentage? You have
Well,
what?
we're different because I'm here on behalf of automakers.
Automakers.
Yeah, so
okay.
it's confusing, I agree, to lump these two
Yeah.
together because the auto industry already has an existing right to repair agreement nationwide.
Okay.
So it's a bit of different circumstances between the two industries.
I'm with the Associated Equipment Distributors. We're a trade association, and Mr. Freeman is one of our members. He's an example of someone who we would, work with.
And I also represent an association, so our members are manufacturers of engines and equipment.
All right, I'm just trying to write down this so I can have it clear in my mind that this actually, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I forgot to put my mic back on. Okay. Because y'all here stating that y'all are against the bill. Okay, so you're saying that this bill is unnecessary because y'all are, anybody that need parts and want to fix their, the parts to the motor vehicle and farm can come to two of y'all.
Yeah, I'll go first. So on the auto side, if you've ever taken your vehicle anywhere but a dealership to an independent repair shop, you've already benefited from auto right to repair. Because if the automakers did not share the repair information with those shops, they would not be able to repair your vehicle. But the fact is, we already share that information. And we do it in all 50 states and telematics data, because we know as much as, our members make vehicles so new car dealers can sell them, we know consumers don't always want to go to a dealership. And so 70% of non-warranty work takes place at an independent repair shop. So if this bill were necessary, that number would be 0. Because then you wouldn't be able to take your vehicle to an independent repair shop, but you can. So this, from the auto side, this bill, we're already doing what's in here. Like I said, everybody in this room has probably benefited from auto right to repair.
Okay. Auto right repaired, okay, because I'm writing down to make sure, to see why he put this bill in, because this bill seemed like it's been put in before, and why is this necessary if we got all of you guys?
That's the right question to ask, yeah.
I mean, they can go to all of y'all and repair all their vehicles and the farm stuff. Okay, I got you, thank you.
Delegate Howard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Freeman, you stated that 70% of the
The other 30%, so we've got technicians that we offer. So if you think about a customer comes in, tractor's broke down, you have an option. Do you want to get the parts, fix it yourself? Or do you want one of our technicians to do it, right? That's the other 30%.
That's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing 70% of the parts are available direct to the customer. The other
No. 70% of the parts purchases occur over the counter. You walk in, you get the parts, you do with them what you need.
What about the other 30%? Are they technician only?
No, I mean, we provide the service of having technicians to, be able to fix. So we would take those 30% of the parts, which would make up, we give it to a technician and they repair the tractor.
And I think that's why the delegates bringing the bill is delay and time frame as far as the 30% are concerned. I guess what I'm trying to get, the meat of the issue I'm trying to get at is, what does that look like as far as breakdown ratio? And what does that look like as far as turnaround time for actual repair? So 30% of the parts might be available to the customer, but they're only available from technician repair, right?
No. 100% of the parts are available to them. Okay. They get to choose, do they want to take the part and go fix their tractor, or do they want our technician to assist them? Okay. They can access any of the parts that they need.
So there's no parts that are, computer control, and I don't want to get into a big conversation, Madam Chair, I'm trying to get right to it. There's no parts that are proprietary?
So from a John Deere perspective, we're a John Deere dealer. There's a solution called John Deere Pro Service. It's very similar. We have to pay for that for our technicians that get trained. A customer can go out and buy that just like we can.
Seeing no further questions, thank you, gentlemen, for your testimony. We have two more unfavorable, Dan Mueller and Ryan Corelli.
Would you like to go first, Dan? Please. Save the best for last. Yeah.
Madam Vice Chair, esteemed members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Daniel Mueller. I am the Director of Aftermarket for Atlanta Tractor. I'm a representative of our dealership. We have 17 locations, serve the John Deere agricultural equipment market. We operate in 5 states, and Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia, and my home state of Maryland. We were formed in 2004. Land Tractor employs nearly 400 associates and serves customers in the agricultural industry, the government sector, light and medium construction, professional landscaping, and residential customers. We stock at any one time approximately $17 million in parts and about $80 million in new and used equipment. I'm here today to speak on behalf of my organization in opposition of this bill. Customers have exercised their ability to self-repair their equipment for a very long time. John Deere has for a number of years made technical information and tools available to customers and third-party organizations to repair equipment. In 2005, John Deere introduced another tool named Operation Center Pro Service, which my colleague Dustin just spoke about. It's a licensed software product that allows you or any customer or third-party shop the ability to diagnose, repair, reprogram their equipment, including software updates. There is no need for this legislation. Our industry operates under a set of nationwide memorandum of understanding with the American Farm Bureau Federation. These agreements cover all major agricultural equipment manufacturers, including John Deere, Case IH, New Holland, Kubota, AGCO, and Kloss. They ensure a consistent nationwide standard for repair access. This legislation is opposed because it's wholly unnecessary given this information. Dealers support customers across multiple sectors, ag, construction, forestry, and turf. And the same repair tools available under the MOUs support all of them. The following customer groups are also in opposition of this legislation, including the Maryland Farm Bureau, the International Union of Operating Engineers, and the National Association of Landscape Professionals. These organizations share our opposition in this bill. In closing, I respectfully ask this committee, which has considered this bill for several years and historically declined to advance it, to again give another unfavorable report this year. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. My name is Ryan Corelli. My colleagues have saved the best for last. I represent a very small dealership in Baltimore County in Dundalk. I'm the president. I started the business with my father 27 years ago when I graduated high school barely. We are much smaller than everyone else that's up here. We employ 15 people, but we've been doing it a long time. We dedicate a lot of time and money into training, a lot of time and money into stocking parts. And I'm not going to repeat everything that all my colleagues said because I agree with all of it. But what I will tell you is I'm not just a dealer for a specific brand. I work on all makes and models. A lot of the larger companies don't do that, but I already work on John Deere, I already work on Caterpillar, I already work on Case, and I have access to their parts and to their systems as well. So this is a bill that doesn't need to exist. It is, as some would say, it is a solution looking for a problem, and I'm happy to take any questions about that. But as far as me, a small business in Baltimore County, we see no need for this legislation, and we take advantage of those tools that are already at our disposal for all makes and models of equipment. So thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Seeing no questions. Oh, wait, sorry. Delegate Bhandari.
And thank you for your testimony. You talk about the National Memorandum of Understanding already working effectively. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Could you help the committee understand if that is working, why placing those same protections into state law would create a problem for your industry?
So the MOU at the national level provides a lot of the infrastructure that's being used to help support the tooling that I mentioned before, the Operations Center Pro Service. So with that guidance in place already, I don't know all the particulars of the Maryland state bill, but across 50 states, 50 different renditions of one national bill versus having one concise piece of legislature to operate from. Again, back to the number of manufacturers that all adhere to the MOU that gives guidance for those tools that are made available to the general public, end users, third-party repair shops, whatever it might be, that already exists.
One more clarifying question. I mean, I understand that there is a national memorandum. If we pass the bill, how does it hurt you guys?
Well, respectfully, I would ask the question, why pass something that's already been passed?
Okay.
Delegate Weigel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you clarify the Farm Bureau's position? I thought you said they were opposed. They have a letter, Maryland Farm Bureau says that they support, but then in their second paragraph, they go on and say they've already found a private sector solution to the right to repair issue. So it seems like they have three different positions.
That's a very good question. I know that Delegate Hornberger spoke earlier and said that they had a letter of support. I can't speak to that. I do know that we have an MOU with the American Federation that supports our effort or our perspective. So I would say there's probably a lot of misinformation out there. I would offer to all delegates and their team members that if you'd want to come to one of our 11 locations in the state of Maryland to see the tools that are available to the general public, we would absolutely be glad to help and host you.
Okay. So, but your understanding is that which Farm Bureau, the Maryland Farm Bureau or the American Farm Bureau Federation is opposed to the?
Yes.
Which one?
Thank you for the question. American Farm Bureau.
American Farm Bureau is opposed, but it looks like Maryland Farm Bureau supports.
Sorry?
It looks like Maryland Farm Bureau supports the legislation, but American Farm Bureau says they've already worked it out.
Sir, I had to defer that question. I do not know.
Okay, thanks.
Delegate Adams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So first off, thank you for being here today. I'm a customer of yours. I've got a nice John Deere 7-iron zero-turn mower. I can go to your location. I can go to your parts department, pick up a part and leave with it.
Yes.
What I do is I drop my mower off and you do the work for me because I don't want to screw up a nice $10,000 zero-turn mower. And the bill, from your perspective, is not necessary because you're granting me, as just a regular guy, any option that is in front of me to do a repair should I wish.
There exists, thank you for the question. Yes, there exists a number of third-party independent repair facilities. You could choose a dealership, you could choose to repair it yourself, but you could also choose one of these third parties that are out there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Seeing no additional questions, we have two virtual unfavorables. They're not there? Okay. That concludes the hearing on House Bill 1429. Moving on to House Bill 1355. Delegate Ampry. And that's you.
All right, thank you, Delegate.
Could be, all depends on, last bill, y'all. Last bill. Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Delegate Marlon Ampry here in support of House Bill 1355, the Maryland Stablecoin Act. I'm so happy that I was able to partner with OFR on this bill, and I'm going to allot my time, most of my time, to the commissioner here to give some more commentary on the bill. But just wanted to give a quick understanding of the bill as quickly as possible. The bill establishes a comprehensive regulatory and legal framework for payment stablecoin-related services operating in Maryland. As digital payment technologies evolve, Maryland must ensure innovation happens within a system that is transparent, well-regulated, and protective of consumers and financial stability. So you may ask, what is stablecoin? Stablecoin is a digital currency designed to maintain a stable value. Unlike highly volatile digital assets such as Bitcoin, a stablecoin is typically pegged one-to-one to a stable asset such as the US dollar. It combines the power and efficiency of blockchain technology with the reliability of traditional currency, making it a foundational infrastructure for digital payment and decentralized finance. So what this bill does is it establishes a comprehensive regulatory and legal framework for payment stablecoin services operating in Maryland, creates a new Title 14 in the Financial Institutions article, designates the Office of Financial Regulation as Maryland's state payment stablecoin regulator, authorizes the Commissioner of Financial Regulation to license and supervise non-depository trust companies, credit union services, organizations providing payment stablecoin services. And what this bill does not promote unregulated digital currency activity. Instead, it balances innovation with accountability, pretty much creating some strong consumer protection guardrails. And just want to give a reason as to why this bill is necessary. There are 4 critical reasons. It aligns with the federal intent. Congress recently passed the Genius Act, creating both a federal pathway and a state authorized pathway. That's where we come in for stablecoin regulation. This bill ensures Maryland can participate in that state pathway while aligning with the federal standards that have been provided and are still forthcoming. Protecting consumers and businesses without proper oversight, stablecoin issues could misrepresent reserves or engage in risky conduct. Number 3, providing legal clarity. The bill clearly defines who can issue a stablecoin, under what conditions, et cetera, and it encourages innovation and economic growth. States like New York and Wyoming have already implemented digital asset frameworks and attracted investment and jobs. Maryland must remain competitive in financial services innovation. So asking for a favorable report on this bill, and I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Salazar to provide, and the rest of the panel, to provide more commentary on what this bill does, and of course they can answer more pointed technical questions around the bill. I know it's a very thick bill, but you need something that's that dense in order to attack such a evolving industry. I'll hand it over to the Commissioner.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair, committee members. I'm Tony Salazar, Commissioner of Financial Regulation. I'm here today in support of HB 1355 with Deputy Commissioner Mike Sprouse, who's here to answer more technical questions that I might not be able to answer, and Assistant Commissioner Balogun, who will speak to the bill. I understand that the favorable party from the Conference of State Bank Supervisors is having trouble logging in, but I think they've put in some kind of written testimony. But this bill deals with stable coins, which is a form of digital assets that has just been subject to federal legislation, as you heard. So Maryland has an opportunity to bring the use of this innovative payment technology to our state. We believe it's legislation that's crucial to establishing the regulatory framework over this new type of digital asset. With that recently enacted Genius Act, it created a federal framework for stablecoin use and regulation, and it included the pathway for states to establish and supervise these digital currencies. Maryland currently lacks a specific mechanism to charter institutions that wish to issue stablecoins or serve as stablecoin service providers, so this bill would designate OFR as the state stablecoin regulator and establish that path. This proactive approach allows Maryland to adapt to the evolving financial services ecosystem, will be fostering innovation while protecting consumers and businesses. Under the Genius Act, states can only charter and supervise stablecoin issuers if they receive the approval of a newly created federal agency by mid-2027. So that's why we're bringing enactment of this legislation at this time to create the necessary legal framework. The bill should have limited fiscal impact because we anticipate a multi-year implementation, and industry assessments will cover the costs. So with that, I want to thank Delegate Ambry for his partnership on the legislation, and I want to request a favorable report. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'll turn it over to Assistant Commissioner Balogun.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, Vice Chair and committee members. My name is Sharifa Balogun, and I am Assistant Commissioner at the Office of Financial Regulation, particularly spearheading innovation at the office. I am here today to testify in support of House Bill 1355. In my role, I oversee the supervision of money transmission businesses. I am also responsible for assessing financial innovations that promote a safe, inclusive, and forward-looking financial services environment in Maryland. I believe that passing this legislation to enable the creation of a Maryland-based stablecoin ecosystem meets those goals. Building upon the Commissioner's remarks, I want to emphasize that other states, including New York, Wyoming, and Nebraska, have already enacted digital currency legislation that addresses stablecoins. Other states, like Connecticut, are adapting their existing statutory language for servicing entities. Maryland should not sit still. After reviewing digital currency charters from other states such as New York, Wyoming, and Nebraska, House Bill 1355 incorporated the ability to obtain a charter to issue stablecoin or provide stablecoin payment servicing into Maryland's existing non-depository structure that focuses on providing a framework that supports how the innovation can operate in a safe and sound manner. It features prudential and financial conditions that are designed to provide a high level of stability and consumer protection for this new payment mechanism. Establishing a stablecoin regulatory framework in Maryland offers several key competitive advantages, particularly as other states have already legislated on digital assets or created stablecoins. These advantages include attracting responsible financial innovation, promoting economic development and workforce expansion, and positioning Maryland as an influential leader in national policy discussions. With that, I respectfully request a favorable report by the committee on House Bill 1355. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
He's here for technical. I think he's here
That's
for
right.
technical questions.
He's here for technical
Oh,
questions.
just technical questions. Okay. Are there questions for the panel? Seeing none, I believe we have. Oh, we have, I think that's it for this panel. So the next, I think the final favorable we have in person is Fatima Waheed. And then we have a virtual, or we don't? They're not on there. Okay.
This is Hussein Waheed, Advanced Technology Acceleration Initiative, and I appreciate the bill on stablecoins because it demonstrates the effectiveness of the methodologies we have been utilizing for a long time for different industries. They are focused on interactive implementation, specifications, and standards. This is one more example that we can include in the transformative economic efficiency estimate that we develop, and it keeps going up every time I see any problems coming up, and we apply this model, solve it or enhance its utilization or create an awareness or share the knowledge about these changes in the standards and the regulations. It helps the initiatives we are involved in. It helps the bill HB 1570 regarding standards development and the review process, which is also a continuous process. And we can identify the timelines within which they need to be modified or addressed. And the modification process is also based on consensus. It's independent, totally self-sustaining, and resilient model utilizing students. That's the reason why I was referring to the survey that a student legislative lead could do and help develop the standards methodology and implement it in state laws, because it brings about transparency, reproducibility, and feasibility at the same time. And that is the reason why the methodology, the whole approach, the set of standards delivers transformative economic efficiency. And this technology itself demonstrates what can be achieved because it's much faster than the conventional approach with respect to the transaction of large sums directly related to transformative economic efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, that concludes the hearing on House Bill 1355 and the hearings for the day. I think we have two subcommittees. So before anyone leaves, let's just make sure everyone knows where and how those are happening. Delegate Bhandari, do you have a subcommittee meeting in 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to mention what it is?
Yeah.
And where we're meeting?
It's land. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We have a subcommittee meeting in next 5 minutes. We have two bills. HB 894, land use transit-oriented development, and land use permitting developmental rights, Maryland Housing Certainty Act.
Great, thanks. That's going to be here?
Yes.
And we're starting 5 minutes after
Yes.
we leave. And then I think, yes, Delegate Amprey.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We will have a Housing and Real Property Subcommittee meeting following the land use meeting virtually. You should have an email with the bills. We added another bill, should be about 3 bills. We may have time to discuss a fourth, but we hope to move quickly. So please be on time, and if you have any amendments, please make sure you got them ready.
And that's, sorry, you said that's 5 minutes after we finish this one? Is that the plan?
5 minutes will get an email. That's where we're going to start.
Okay. Okay, that'll be virtual. And one last thing, members, we do have an event tonight, and you're encouraged to attend. So with that, we'll take our 5-minute break, and then we'll be back for land use.